What's up, fam? Smash the like button for the algorithm and let's get started with the story. Often, when a person is in danger, he turns to God, and it does not matter which one, as is the case now in the counting of votes in the light of God's case. While his fate is being decided, he thinks only of the one he worships, praying only for his salvation. But what about when the accused is a hero who is God and who is in need of help himself? As Changsun continues to ponder this, he suddenly finds himself lying on the grass. That means the jury's votes have been counted, and the appropriate decision for his divine punishment has already been made. Still lying on the grass, Li Chang's whereabouts, confidently believing that he was destroyed by accepting death in another universe system, since he can't get back in due to system failure and malfunction. And since that's the case, his divine powers and status have been revoked. But in that case, why does Changsun remain conscious of his memories? Suddenly, on the horizon, the hero sees a raft approaching with people sitting in it. At that moment, a man with a huge scroll behind his back appears before him and starts reading out information that pertains to him, including his parents' names, place, and date of birth. The hero silently continues to listen to what the scroll says, and the stranger continues how getting to Arcadia and reaching the heights of Li Chang's took the lives of many gods, for which he was caught and sentenced to punishment. Yes, the stranger was not mistaken about Changsun. At this time, Li Chang thinks of nothing better to do than to decide to attack the stranger who knows so much about him. Reaching out his hand, Li Changsun swiftly tries to grab the stranger but just barely misses touching his face. Li Changsun's hand misses and grabs the air. The stranger manages to bounce back to avoid the takedown. At this time, our hero sees the stranger appear above him, in parallel, drawing his sword. Li Chang's sober assessment of the situation doesn't stop him from trying to reach for it. After all, our hero is determined to keep fighting. The stranger suddenly, Li Changsun swings around to strike the stranger. Li Changsun's blow hits the stranger's sword and is so strong that it knocks the scroll out of his hands. The confrontation between the two sides causes a strong surge of water that throws the opposing sides off. As a consequence, the stranger is confused about what is happening. Our hero is also as surprised by what happened as his opponent, but the fight continues nonetheless, and Li Changsun is the next to strike, a result not expected by the man who arrived on the raft. The impact throws them off in different directions, forming a wall of water between him and our hero. In a flurry of struggle, the stranger manages to hang on by landing on the edge of the raft. Thinking that Li Changsun is finished, the stranger is extremely surprised by what he sees in front of him through the water wall. Li Chang comes out to meet the stranger. On the face of the protagonist reads anger and rage towards his enemy. He is determined to continue the resulting clash to clarify the situation. Suddenly, Li Chang sees the shackles that restrained him at the jury deliberations when the verdict was handed down, and despite all the art of the deity, they are able to turn man into a primitive creature, which is how the hero feels. So, being in a desperate situation, he decides to find out the identity of the stranger who arrived. As it turns out, he is facing the Reaper of the underworld, Yul, and the place where they are is the afterlife where the river Styx flows. The protagonist, who previously believed that after the divine judgment, he would be inevitably destroyed, is confused that he has passed into the afterlife. Also from Yul, he learns what was originally under their control, so the Reaper offers the hero to follow him to meet the one who redirected him to the afterlife and give all explanations. The information Li Changsun has received is questionable, more questions than answers. However, having decided to go with Yul, the hero learns that Arcadia, to which he was mistakenly redirected, is significantly different from his home planet. On it, people live the amount of time they have been given and their fate is written in a book called the Book of Life and Death, and that this book can only have validity where it was written. But Li Changsun again can't understand how all of this affects him. Yul further explains that his record disappeared and because Li Changsun went to Arcadia, he was hard to find. What's more, Li Changsun became a god there and managed to make a serious mess. They had to lose a lot of things to find him. From what was said, Li Changsun still remains incomprehensible, and he begins to remember how, walking down the street, he saw the fiery gates that diverge in different directions. At that moment, fear and terror gripped him, and it is clearly readable in his eyes. But after coming to his senses, Li Chang still tries to find out why they didn't let him disappear in Arcadia. As the conversation continues, Li Changsun doesn't get an answer to his question because Yul is just the executor of someone else's instructions, and that lord is none other than Mr. Thanatos himself. He is the current lord of the underworld and head of Tartarus and Erebus. At the end of the story, Li Changsun and his companions find themselves in front of the castle entrance staircase, where there is a line of people. To shorten the journey, Yul offers Li Changsun his escort, and they begin to be transported past the entrance, and all those people they saw in the beginning. Along the way, Yul tells our hero what lies beneath them. The first is a fire pit with people in the hell of the fire pit. Next comes a pit covered in ice where human silhouettes are frozen. This pit is called glacial hell. Next, non-humans shrouded in blocks of stone appear in front of them. From what Changsun saw, he's surprised that they're not like the others. Who were they? He asks, to which he receives a remark from Yul about his line of work before he became a criminal. The protagonist is interested in what he has heard and what the Reaper is leading up to, as Changsun learns these are the fallen gods that Thanos sealed as evil gods. It's worth admitting that Changsun didn't know about this before. However, as you pointed out, Changsun would not have spread the word knowing that it would affect his heavenly reputation. Yul continues his story, that those people who are less sinful are subject to hard labor. Bypassing all the circles, Changsun and you are transported to their final destination and stand before the gates of entrance where their lord awaits them. The Reaper presents the king with the one he had to leave, for it is the light of the gods. Just as Yul finished his report, a gate opens in front of them, and a voice from within calls out to them, inviting them to come to him. But Changsun feels constrained by the oppressive environment around him because there are two eyes looking at him without any outline. The protagonist is utterly bewildered by what he sees and hears. It's probably going to be a lot of fun, flashed through Changsun's mind. When the darkness cleared, Changsun saw a man sitting on a throne in front of him. This phenomenon did not make Changsun very excited, it's probably the opposite. Suddenly, whoever was sitting on the throne started addressing him, and before continuing, the Lord decided to ask the hero a question that concerned him directly. What awaits our hero after death? But Changsun wasn't ready to give an answer right now because he had never thought about it. The Lord didn't take long to give Changsun his specific answer. Hell. This answer did not please Changsun and required clarification, upon which the Lord began to recount the chronology of events that began on June 21, 2024. It all starts with Chang going off on his partner and driving him into tears, from which followed a question to the Reaper as to what punishment should be inflicted on our hero for such treatment. Naturally, Changsun goes to hell, where he is deprived of his tongue for 15 days. The following situation concerns Changsun being busy playing the game, and not helping a friend who needs him. The punishment is being sent to the mountain of knives for a crushed ant. The hero goes to poisonous snake hell for 4 days, and for a dog, 10 days without a tongue, and for never once taking a girl's hand, 6 days of twilight. Finally, Changsun can't stand it anymore and starts yelling to find out who they are and what right they have to insult him like that. In response, Changsun only gets a dismissive look without any explanation. As it turns out, Changsun finds out that he's just a joke and nothing more. At this time, the Lord takes the scroll that Yul had and begins to go over it. Based on what he has written, he gives his verdict on Chang's ruthlessness, and since that's the case, Changsun has a fair question about the meaning of his rescue. Then, as if in response to him, Thanatos offers Changsun a deal for a favor the hero can do because there are some gods who break their vows to come to Earth, and Chang needs to find them by going to the human world. But doesn't that mean Changsun will be reborn as an ordinary person, forgetting that its original location is Earth? Therefore, it will simply go where it is supposed to be. With a wave of his hand, Thanos presents Changsun with a parade of planets that appear before our hero in all their splendor and power. The protagonist is surprised and quite amazed at what he sees before him, but only one planet evokes those unique emotions in him like no other, and this is planet Earth, the place he was originally destined to be. Forgetting that he is not alone, Changsun hears the sarcastic ridicule of his sentimentality. Changsun is not confused and explains the reason for his behavior by saying that Earth is his home and therefore his feelings should be understood. But continuing his mockery, Thanos says that there's something else for Changsun to be amazed about. In anticipation, Changsun waits to see what else the Lord has in store for him, and then he sees his planet in front of him at a larger size than it was a little while ago. The scale on the plan begins to zoom in to describe the outline of the mainland, which, as they get closer, begins to loom into some sort of city, gradually transitioning to a street lit by streetlights with the tops of houses on either side. Changsun is walking down this street with a bottle in his hand and his head down, and then something unknown catches his attention, causing him to be distracted from his thoughts. What he sees in front of him, it causes him to fear and not understand what is happening. But it can't be these memories. How can it be possible? Chang is actually still in the castle of the Lord of the Underworld. Answering his question, Thanos decides to send our hero to Earth, where Chang's mission is to find the gods who broke their vows. However, Changsun still cannot understand why this job is assigned to him as his sentence, to which the Lord explains that Changsun is the one who can handle such a task. He has to find the many gods of Arcadia, including Aura, Va, and Chun, because they have compromised the integrity of the entrance to the underworld. That's exactly what the hero saw walking down the street on Earth. The protagonist begins to guess that, having broken their oaths, the gods are trying to get to Earth through the gap formed. The Lord confirms the hero's words. However, Changsun wonders why the underworld is doing nothing to stop them. To this, he receives Thanos' reply about the omniscience of what the oath says. However, it is only human beings who can go to the other world, and the oath contains no mention of such restrictions for the gods. Then, Changsun begins to realize that he is just a pawn for the underworld, which will be gotten rid of when the job is over. But Thanos dispels his assumptions by promising that Changsun will be given a new life after completing his correctional labor. But whether it's really true or not, Changsun can't believe what he's hearing. Thanos, without losing the thread of the conversation, begins to bring our hero to the conclusion of the deal. He's trying to interest Changsun by giving him some powers. The protagonist, having heard what was said, tries to find out in more detail what he has promised, and what his power will be. Without waiting for an answer, Thanos offers Changsun the power of power. The protagonist is under the impression of what he hears, and he is not entirely sure that's possible without violating the rules prescribed for the underworld. Thanos replies that this is within his authority, and that it's some kind of gift he's giving Changsun in the event of a deal. Hearing this, Changsun is very happy that he will have such abilities, and thus there is no reason to delay the deal. So, in such a case, the deal is considered concluded, and the contract is signed. Here, the Lord of the Underworld proclaims the beginning of Changsun's reincarnation, and Changsun is preparing to enter the gate called the Gate of Rebirth. However, upon entering the Gate of Rebirth, Changsun will lose all of his deity and turn into a regular person who has to start over without any powers. Listening to Yule, Changsun assures him that he will mean what he says. However, he can no longer tolerate what Yule is saying, trying to give him the latest clarification regarding his powers. Having finished his instructions, Yule escorts our hero to the gate where his sentence begins. Still sitting in the boat, Changsun finally sees them in front of him. Without much thought, he jumps to the gate to begin his rebirth sooner rather than later. Once in front of them on the cliff, Changsun sees their doors open, but before stepping into them, Changsun still decides to say goodbye. In turn, the Reaper tries to give his final parting words, but Changsun doesn't listen to him and flies to the place where his sentence begins as an ordinary man. Yule is standing at the door, looking after Changsun. He is now a Reaper of the underworld to whom the Lord has granted power. Changsun is still continuing his flight, leaving the Reaper and the entire underworld behind him. Finally, he hears that the rebirth gate has been successfully passed, and there is a system update that tries to connect to the new server. Through the flight, Changsun hears that he has been assigned the title of administrator. Suddenly, he lands on the grass, which means he's already made it to his destination. Lying on the grass, Changsun sees people gathered around him who are confused by what they have just seen. Our hero, continuing to lie there, notes to himself that all the memories of his past life have been restored to the smallest detail, and around him, the anxious cries of passers-by still echo through the screaming and panic. Changsun hears a girl speaking in his native language. Finally, he's home. Finally, he's back, Changsun thinks. Opening his eyes, Changsun tries to assess the situation around him. Rising to his feet, he sees the people in front of him in fear and equally confused, and he's one of the few people who ended up in an unknown place out of choice, in a place located in the center of an impenetrable forest and bounded by a blue border. At this moment, Changsun recalls the words that were previously spoken by Thanos during our hero's stay in the underworld. When Changsun passes through the gate, he will enter a place that is both Earth and not, for the reason that you can't enter another world unnoticed. It's only fair that Changsun questions where he's going to end up, and this place will be chosen when Changsun passes through a random rift. While Changsun is remembering this, the people around him start to panic from the realization that they are in a foreign place where there is no connection, and that place is the Rosewood Garden. Participants is 431, however, there was an error in counting, and together with our hero, their number increased to 432. Finally, the trials begin, in which participants will be categorized into difficulty levels based on their individual abilities. The first mission is to defeat the monsters hiding in the forest, divided into 5 sections using different methods. The outcome is to be on top of the mountain. All participants can use their status skills and have access to inventory, but before you start, you should familiarize yourself with the rules. Not wanting to waste time, Changsun runs to the first section, not even hearing what the contestants left behind are trying to shout to him. After breaking away from them, Lee Chang-sung rushes to fulfill his mission. Is it possible? He's a player, as it all looks very familiar from the outside. And if he is, then isn't he the character with the nickname Tyrant? While still running, Lee Chang-sung starts to worry that his stamina isn't that good since he's running so low. He's already panting. But before proceeding, he should refer to the system window to check his status. However, the system window has not yet been updated to provide access to all of the hero's information. This confirms his hunch, but where is the promised power? After a bit of waiting, he learns that he has the power to suck out souls using the Executioner Sword while having the right to use the Flames of Purgatory. The best part is that after defeating the monster, Lee Chang-sung can take his experience by taking his soul, and his abilities will help him avoid exhaustion and heal from his injuries. While the Executioner Sword will help him harness the power of the gods to punish criminals, that is purely theoretical. Lee Chang-sung will become omnipotent and omniscient if he wins, which means Thanos didn't cheat him out of his power, probably because Thanatos doesn't like the gods of other worlds. On reflection, Lee Chang-sung is sure that the Executioner Sword is probably not that easy to use. Of course, the sword is much better than the soul-sucking skill, but in order for it to be used, you need the opponent to be someone who completely breaks the oath, and there's a chance that in the confrontation, Lee Chang-sung will be seriously injured while defeating the criminal. What comes next in this reflection? Lee Chang-sung sees his enemy. His first opponent is a huge black snake called the Black Mamba. With its huge mouth open, it launches an attack on Lee Chang-sung, but anticipating a quick victory, Lee Chang-sung pulls out a rusty dagger and launches an attack. Striking a sharp blow with his rusty dagger, he slashes the serpent in one fell swoop. The serpent has been struck, and Lee Chang-sung has victory in his hands. With victory, Lee Chang-sung raises his skill in the rusty dagger technique, arousing the interest of the deity called Hunting Season. Our hero is pleased with himself and the outcome of the battle that ended in his favor. He will surely be better than all the others, and they will be afraid of him. After all, it is fear that can provide the opportunity to start a new life. The same goes for the gods and stars, who, upon completion of AD mission, have the right to choose a cleric to spread their teachings because they are the ones who elect the preachers who carry their will to the people. So, huge crowds descend into the dungeon to try their luck and get the power that the gods and stars give, but only a few are lucky enough to get the divine attention, and the rest die without receiving it. Because to the gods, beings condemned to death are of no interest, and only those who meet the requirements are so honored. Or if only they can show that they have a special gift, like our hero, who after the successful completion of the fight became interested in the deity called Hunting Season. This deity is a war goddess called Pog, who skillfully uses different types of ammunition for the pleasure of the hunt. But the cherry on the cake is that her mother is Tiamat, the primordial dragon of evil, and it's very surprising that such a person would be interested in Lee Chang-sung so soon. But what would she say after seeing the rusty dagger technique in action? Lee Chang-sung is not failing. The technique that Lee Chang-sung is going to shine with is really interesting, and he'll do his best not to fall flat on his face. But his musings are interrupted by an odor that begins to spread through the forest. Our hero concludes that it's the poison that soaked half the forest, which means that many monsters have already been poisoned by it, and if that's the case, it's time for the next plan. But his thoughts are interrupted by an attack from behind by two black mambas. Without thinking long, Lee Chang-sung uses the snake hunter's jump, which is perfect for this purpose. As Lee Chang-sung sprints, he leaps to deliver a devastating blow to the snakes. For successfully completing the task, Lee Chang-sung receives additional experience points. These experience points raise Lee Chang-sung's level by an order of magnitude, and the rusty dagger technique has success against black mambas. As Lee Chang-sung has no trouble getting rid of the snakes that infest the rosewood forest, in due time his skill improves, and the feel of the battle becomes more accurate. And it's all thanks to the enemies who revive and contribute to Lee Chang-sung's improved concentration in the confrontation. Having notched a string of victories and killed a single black mamba, our hero succeeds in instilling fear in them and is their blood enemy. This is exactly what Lee Chang-sung was going by successfully completing tasks and instilling fear in the snake-like monsters for defeating 100 black mambas. Lee Chang's is promoted higher to the level of black mamba fighter. Our hero is happy with the result he got and the feeling he gets from fighting snakes because he enjoys what he does, whether it's Arcadia or Rosewood. That's why Lee Chang-sung was in the dock. But is it really true, or maybe it's just an unfounded excuse? Maybe the deity is just scared that a mere mortal can stand up to them. In that case, Lee Chang-sung will give them what they fear so much. He will do so despite the initial lack of such intentions. The hero gains a number of victories over black mambas by improving his existing technique and acquiring the skill of a regular dagger, which delights the deity. Not wanting to stop at what he has accomplished, the hero learns that he needs a break to regain his strength and stamina, and he activates the gifted power to suck the souls out of defeated monsters. To do so, Lichang uses the flames of purgatory and takes possession of Black Mamba ashes. As a result, his stamina increases to 5%, and strength is finally restored to continue the fight against the snake-like monsters. Lichang's zeal and good fortune have hunting season confused because it doesn't know what type of hero's abilities should be categorized as. Another hero's victory over the Black Mambas further certifies the deity in his doubt, and only Changsun knows that it's all due to the approval received from Thanatos, and not what the rookies have at the beginning of the mission, as the deity thinks. But even if it had guessed, it would not have intervened to avoid violating the principle of causation. To find out the newcomer's data in such musings, Lichang tries to catch his breath after gaining victory and preparing for the next fight. He confidently believes that he does not care if the data about him becomes known because Lichang is under the protection of the underworld. Otherwise, everything would have been revealed by now. Finally, defeating the last Mamba, the hero opens the system window and sees that his power stats have increased and he can use skills, and his abilities are increasing. Lichang's interest in Pag, which is a good sign. Now we have to earn his favor with our achievements, and to do that, Lichang needs to fight a red and bloody Mamba. Since Lichang has a resistance to poison, even if it's not strong, the victory should be quick. But it's worth bearing in mind that the Blood Mamba stands at the head of all available Mambas and is a danger to even high-level beginners. However, that doesn't scare Lichang, and he wants to try to defeat her single-handedly because it is a good attempt to get the attention of the gods. But also, it is not that important. The poisonous fang of the Blood Mamba is especially valuable, as Lichang gets full resistance to poison once he gets it, because it was the lack of resistance to poison and, of course, the numerical superiority of the gods that once struck Lichang and affected the outcome. No matter what, Lichang must get that fang. Thinking about it, Lichang notices that the condition of his first weapon, a rusty dagger, is deteriorating significantly. Of course, this is not surprising since he was defeated by a total of 444 Mambas. Suddenly, Lichang notices a flash in the sky. The object that appears catches his attention, which is a different kind of weapon than a rusty dagger, a weapon for beginners. This weapon is worthy of more attention and detailed consideration. Lichang notices that the weapon contains dragon scales. Such weapons are characteristic of Tiamat. There must be a catch. The hero is right, gifts like this don't just happen. The deity wants to make a bet with him, and if he fails, he'll be sent to the next world. It's as if Lichang is just a toy they're willing to get rid of just for wasting their time. This attitude always makes Lichang hate everything divine. But now is the time to seize the moment because if Lichang wins, he will have a big advantage. That means that once Lichang gets his hands on the weapon, he'll gain incredible strength. So this time too, it's worth making a deal and finding out what Lichang has to do to get his hunter's license. Meanwhile, the rest of the mission is summoned by a certain man, which causes resentment and incomprehension among the people left in the Rosewood clearing. The man shows the assembled people an unopened ID card, according to which he is a junior lieutenant, and is subject to military defense. He is also a C-rank player, and therefore, he must be obeyed, and all his instructions must be carried out. The player's status causes some relief among those gathered in Rosewood. However, they are concerned about the fate of Lichang, who ran away without waiting for anyone when the mission began, and most likely for the sole purpose of making a fortune, one that will exceed the fortune of all those gathered. As it turns out, among the gathered newcomers, there is a person who knows him and knows that Lichang is the leader of ST and a player under the nickname Tyrant, which by its appearance attracts the interest of advertisers and has general publicity. However, having finished his playing activities, he began to drink and disappeared from the posters. Or maybe his disappearance is because he decided to go into the next world. But this statement by someone who knows Lichang so well does not enthuse the audience. Suddenly, in the system window that appears, those present learn that all the snake-like monsters of the dungeon have been destroyed. The information received is perplexing to those gathered. After all, if all the participants of the mission are in a safe zone, who then massacres the monsters? All the snake-like monsters, white worms and blue ravens, are sent to the next world with incredible speed, and Lichang is furious at the epicenter of all events. Not just him, because what happened is unbelievable and raises more questions than answers, especially for a player who knows Lichang so well. Meanwhile, Lichang completes the mission with the subsequent winning of the bet. Upon completion, he receives a hunter's license in a category called Casual Mission. For this, the deity sees the hero as a candidate for the title of priest, also because all the worthy beings are occupied, and it remains to look out for newcomers. But to get it, he has to defeat a bloody mamba in 24 hours. In case of defeat, death. Victory, the fawn of the evil dragon. Is this something urgent, not related to the recent conflict between Tiamat and B. Marduk, the strongest sign of the zodiac and mother of the hunting season? And if that's the case, then Li Changsun will have a lot to gain from the controversy. Besides, there is a point to fight because the evil dragon Fang, obtained at such a high price, has its own characteristics. The more difficult the task, the better for Li Changsun. So, Li Changsun decides to offer the deity different terms of the game, thereby throwing him into confusion. Li Changsun reduces the fight time from 24 hours to 30 minutes, so the new time for Li Changsun to defeat the bloody mamba is only 30 minutes. Such self-confidence delights the deity, and it accepts our hero's proposal. But Li Changsun should keep in mind that if he loses, he will face a painful death. Just at that time, a flash of light appears in Li Changsun's path, from which emerges a huge worm-like, snake-like monster. The monster's power shakes the ground around it, forming giant chasms. Without thinking long, Li Changsun jumps on the monster's back to strike, and this strike should do as much damage as possible to weaken the monster's power. Our hero makes a swift poke with his dagger into the giant's flesh, hooking onto the hilt of his weapon, stripping the monster's body, and then swings again for the final blow. Finally, by cutting off the monster's head, Li Changsun wins an absolute victory, for which he raises his level and adds points to his strength. Before Li Changsun can finish one thing, he notices another flying monster attacking from behind. Without thinking long, Li Changsun defeats him and increases his stamina points. Such luck and ability do not go unnoticed by the other deities, which, in turn, does not go unnoticed by our hero. The bloody mamba, who shows interest in Li Changsun, is no exception. In turn, this strikes the deity of the hunting season, compelled to warn all who are interested in our hero. Li Changsun, in turn, satisfied with the work done, is eager to go to a worthy opponent. Finally reaching the 10th level, Li Changsun is awarded the secret class as a rookie who has surpassed himself in the speed of completing tasks. It makes more sense to reach new heights than to be a spearman from a previous life, and that requires a worthy adversary. For this role, Berserk is perfect. In spite of a strong blow, he loses his mind, but knowing this and taking extra measures, he can be defeated. To finish the deal sooner, despite the fact that defeating this monster can be difficult for players of even the 20th level, and being in anticipation, Li Changsun looks through the system window to select the proposed class. Out of the entire list, Li Changsun is interested in those who are in secret status. Finally, Li Changsun scrolls to the end of the list of suggested classes, expecting to see Berserk, but Li Changsun realizes that he is not among those listed. And yet, the time left to decide is 6 minutes. Meanwhile, the bloody mamba continues to follow our hero, tracking him down among the trees where Li Changsun is forced to hide while deciding on his class choice. But Li Changsun still doesn't understand why Berserk isn't listed. Meanwhile, the class selection is coming to an end, and Li Changsun needs to decide on a class and time to be watched. Without making the deity wait any longer, Li Changsun chooses to become a rune keeper, hoping to increase his fighting ability. And so, there is a change of class. The new class is Rune Keeper. Along with the change of class, Li Changsun's dexterity and magic power increase by 5, and he adds intelligence and willpower. This choice brings amazement to the deity and ridicule to the other gods. Nevertheless, skill class creation runes for beginners, rune engraving for beginners, created. That's just what we need to finish the job in the remaining 4 minutes. Li Changsun adds another 30 additional units to the intelligence statistic and 25 additional units to the will stat. But suddenly, something happens that Li Changsun isn't ready for yet. He is attacked by a bloody mamba, a snake-like monster that has been following our hero for a long time. Li Changsun quickly pulls himself together and tries to escape from her in order to save himself, and with little time to dodge the attack, he jumps away from where the blow is coming from. Finally, there is the activation of the skill, creating runes for beginners, with the probability of increasing success directly proportional to statistics. Pinning his hopes on his battle weapon, Li Changsun prepares to strike, which, thanks to Li Changshang's actions, turns out to be successful. Our hero's battle weapon wounds the snake-like monster, and Li Chang's is remembering a skill his elders taught him in order to put it into practice. By applying finger marks on the martial weapon, Li Changsun activates the skill, Rune Engraving for Beginners. The result of this activation is an engraving on the weapon, which is called the Rune of Explosion. However, the predictability of Li Chang's future actions only makes the laugh. However, it is interested in how Li Chang's knows about runes, having managed to create and engrave them all, thereby increasing his skill level. But inadvertently, Li Changsun uses up all his magic power and reaches a state of decadence. Meanwhile, while Li Chang's is once again attacked by a snake-like monster, the amount of time left is already down to 3 minutes. From the thick of the rosewood forest comes an explosion that signals a clash in progress. The resulting noise and outbursts cause the people in the clearing to take notice. Again, although similar sounds have come from the forest before, this explosion is not like all the others. It is much more powerful, and it makes sense that the visible smoke is causing fear and bewilderment among the people left in their seats. That's when they find out that Li Chang's is engaging in a boss battle, and that boss is none other than the Bloody Mamba himself. But there's no way that Li Chang's has already started the battle with the boss. That's exactly what the remaining players think, and it's likely that Li Chang's has the intention to ruin them all because he does what he wants in games too, without regard for the opinions of other players. Eventually, something must be done to stop this lawlessness before it's too late, or the ultimate outcome for all will be the inevitable departure to another world. However, despite the panic of a man who knows our hero well, the sheriff has a different opinion. Staying where he is and doing nothing is not part of his plan, but what's happening in the sky right now gives some hope to the people. It's more likely that the flashes in the sky are indicative of a critical strike. With the number of outbreaks increasing exponentially, it's possible that the remaining players don't appreciate Li Chang's abilities, which inspires hope for their salvation. But what the sheriff sees so far doesn't give him a sure explanation. Meanwhile, the number of flashes in the sky continues to increase, and at this minute, the resistance continues against the monster, with Li Chang's delivering blow after blow. He seems obsessed and addicted to the ongoing confrontation, which causes a huge flare-up to form between the two. This resistance forms an explosion signaling the end of the battle, and that's how Li Chang successfully defeats the first boss, Bloody Mamba. Players witness the passage of the first section called Mission Dungeon Mastering, where the belt rating will be summarized in due time. Li Changsun receives awards to be given out according to achievements and position in the rankings, where he is ranked first, and perhaps Li Chang's will witness the birth of one of the 10 kings. Meanwhile, Bloody Mamba is shown among the trees to the remaining players in the clearing. Of course, no one expects that, because judging by the flashbacks, she should be finished. But opening its jaws, the Bloody Mamba tries to make its move, and judging by the current situation, that's the last thing the remaining players see. But something starts to go wrong, someone stops her, and it's none other than Li Chang's, who doesn't hesitate to deliver a devastating blow to her. This act cannot go unnoticed by the players, making Li Chang's very tense. He doesn't expect such a reaction, so to lighten the mood, he asks them what they are. From the lieutenant's words, he finally figures out that there are players in front of him and, to waste no time, orders them to take care of the weaker gods while he decides to take on bigger fish. But he doesn't expect to hear that he wants to be taken care of. However, knowing that he is not welcome here, he decides to leave with his prey, leaving the players to ponder whether he's really a tyrant or a demon. But if he was a demon, he'd be gone by now. This kind of thinking and talking at length about Li Chang's angers a player who knows him so well. Meanwhile, Li Chang's, after hearing the last words about him, reflects on what was said. After all, he wasn't used to hearing such treatment for himself. Having settled down with his prey, he decides to take a break using the time allotted to him before the opening of the second section, and at the same time, he needs to engrave another rune, the rune of obstruction. After performing all the manipulation, Li Changsun receives information about increasing his skill level. At this point, the beginner rune creation skill reaches its maximum, and the continuing rune creation skill becomes available. But first, the rewards have to be sorted out. However, Li Changsun decides to stay with the Dragon Fang for now, therefore, the choice is quite predictable, and the number of achievement points becomes 15,000. Since we should not forget that in the world of men and gods, all decide money, and therefore you need to prepare for the opening of the game store, the next step is to select the status. Accessing the system window and satisfied with what he sees in front of him, Li Changsun once again makes sure that the fight with the Bloody Mamba has done its job in his favor. Now, the Dragon Fang is his identity, and Li Changsun's persona is already being openly sought after by other gods, which only plays into Li Changsun's hands. As a result, to keep his deity hunting season, he offers him a second gift to choose from. Looking at what is hidden in the dragon treasury, Li Changsun can't make up his mind, as all the treasures are very rare. But in time, Li Changsun decides to keep his intentions to himself, which displeases deity hunting season and sows some doubts about Li Changsun's plotting. However, Li Changsun wishes to further properly utilize his savings that have multiplied after the transfer of the reward. Then, hunting season offers Li Changsun the chance to become a candidate for the priesthood, to which he receives a refusal, and the reward is exchanged for points. Again looking at the tidy sum of 2,115,000 achievement points, Li Changsun was satisfied with the work done, even if it was thanks to the gods. This, in turn, angers the deity of hunting season because Li Changsun dares to make fun of him, but this fact does not knock Li Changsun out of the rut. He believes in himself and his strength. Such self-confidence and persistence contribute to the interest of Li Changsun even more among the gods, who are anticipating a fascinating spectacle. If the conflict between Bel Marduk and Tiamat is confirmed, the latter will need more prominent personalities. At this time, the deity of hunting season, having changed his mind about Li Changsun, turns his gaze back to him. So Li Changsun is on the right track, as everything is working out as he planned. It's time to move on to the next step, and without thinking long, Li Changsun is already preparing for the next step. It's time to take full advantage of the monster's loot, and Li Changsun takes the bloody mamba's blood, 10 and 5 pieces and 2 eyes. While the other players are chilling in the clearing, the number of gods interested in Li Changsun increases by leaps and bounds, especially after the rejection. However, not all players are happy with Li Changsun's status and success. Someone who knows Li Changsun well thinks he could probably replicate his accomplishments too, but you have to be a current player to do that. After all, if Li Changsun, who has a reputation as a drunkard, can do it, why can't he? All he has to do is try, and if he unleashes his talents, he can shine, and God's message will be able to prove to everyone and show what he can do. As soon as Changchun said this, the deity, Al, piercing through the dim light, began to show interest in him. Immediately, a huge flash of spreading light appears in the sky. This flash indicates that an administrator has entered, and it is a run of such force that it throws off the people who are in the area of impact. Now, amidst the smoke and ashes, the outline of that very same administrator appears, who is none other than the Herald Bunny posing as a KR channel administrator. Before he could introduce himself to the surprised players who hadn't met him before, the KR channel administrator starts scrolling through his huge pocket watch. This performance further begins to baffle the players, and the Herald Rabbit, as if mocking them, still keeps referring to his watch. He explains that his coming to the humans is due to an event. Suddenly, the lieutenant starts remembering something he's seen before, and the Herald Rabbit continues that his arrival is due to non-interference rules spelled out in administrative office policy. But in view of the fact that there is a disruption due to a big jump in the rankings, it is angering the management, and so the Herald Rabbit needs intervention to adjust the difficulty of completing the mission. The incoming information makes a huge impression on the players, but without paying any attention to the humans, the Herald Rabbit takes the safe zone out of the clearing where the players are. This means that along with the destruction of the safe zone, the aggressiveness of the monsters will also be increased. But it wasn't supposed to happen. Not one member of the mission was prepared for that, no one but a lieutenant who once had such a selection process. He witnessed this selection and saw everything with his own eyes when a huge number of people were sent to the other side of the world without being selected, and only the lieutenant survived among a bunch of players who didn't make it. Yes, history repeats itself now as it did then. Players have to pass the selection process so that the gods can see if there are any capable players among the newcomers, and the lieutenant may once again witness people falling prey to the amusement of the gods. But do the gods really believe in his potential to put him to such a test? Over all these thoughts and events, Li Changsun appears in the clearing. According to the rules, players can team up to fend off hungry predators and collect crystals. The countdown is on. At this time, the Herald Rabbit turns to Lieutenant Park Ha-sung. However, the lieutenant is in utter amazement that the herald knows him. Immediately, with the answer he receives an explanation that the administrative bureau is interested in him because last time he stayed alive in the dragon's lair. If that's the case, may Park Ha-sung be lucky this time. The countdown ends, and the disappearance of the herald signaled the start of the game. More precisely, it was the evidence of the beginning of the second stage, which is marked by the appearance of three-headed battle monsters beginning their assault on players. This suddenness catches the players off guard, each making chaotic actions in turn. Young Yun-jae decides to turn the situation in his favor because this is his chance to take a chance and start to prove himself, and the owl deity piercing the dim light promotes his good fortune, thus showing favor to Jang Chun-jae. Meanwhile, Lechang is extracting the black mamba's poisonous fang. It is the fang that will help Lechang gain resistance to the poison. During all this activity, Lechang lets the second stage begin, and the gods begin to argue about Lechang. Yes, the start has been made, and selection amongst the players is beginning, but Lechang is sure he has plenty of time, and his cutback may be due to the dispute he won with Publ Lazag. It is likely that this situation will again play into the hands of Li Chang's, as his further actions cause interest and controversy among the gods. But what Li Changsun gets from the system window is not what he expects, because his stamina is lower due to the lack of time to rest. In the meantime, a fire lizard begins to accompany him. However, what he used in the first stage doesn't work in the second stage against this monster, because the first stage uses poison against living organisms, while the fire lizard is in front of him. Since that's the case, the type of poison will change from ice and metal and eventually get to corporeal. Thus, Changsun must win against the fire lizard, and without a moment's hesitation, Changsun strikes with his dagger. The fire flash indicates that victory is on Li Chang's side, and the fire energy will be extracted. The hero continues to strike the fire lizard, releasing clusters of energy time after time. Li Changsun continues to strip the fire beast, who, despite the beatings, continues to resist. The fire energy released is so strong that it throws Li Changsun off, but the fire lizard is fighting harder and harder for its life, spewing out streams of fire. However, Li Chang, in turn, continues to strike with his dagger, delivering final blows to the body of the fire lizard. In the end, in this fight, the fire monster is defeated. The fiery beast lost its head and went to the other world in puffs of fire. Li Chang, standing on the defeated enemy, celebrates another victory. But you've got to hand it to the fire lizard. Its stamina is far greater than that of the black mamba, which means it would be harder to defeat any of them. But it's necessary to finally finish the case that Li Changsun started. Penetrating the flesh of the fire beast, Li Chang's retrieves the fireball. To utilize the energy to its fullest, Li Changsun swallows a fireball, and the system window starts to notify that Li Changsun is getting weak but gains resistance to fire and 20,000 units of fire energy. In trying it out, Li Changsun spews flames of fire, but it's not enough to gain poison resistance to obtain more fireballs, which is nothing less than 8 trigrons of thermal energy. To achieve it, Li Changsun throws himself at whole clusters of fire lizards because resistance to poison is the unique ability of Ant's longtime enemy, Li Changsun. Its uniqueness allows you to be immune to all poisons and additionally creates its own poison to infect the blood. Yes, Li Changsun had every chance to defeat his worst enemy, Anaris, if it weren't for the curse of Gaia that led to Li Changsun's defeat and the destruction of his divine status. Instead of going to the other side of the world, Li Changsun manages to get to Thanatos, the ruler of the underworld, through which he learns everything he can about a secret art called Fallen Stars. It is this knowledge that he needs to challenge nearly all 12 constellations, who, in turn, have many enemies among the Fallen Stars condemned and sent to the underworld. The Fallen Stars, a.k.a. the 12 Elders, are happy to share their knowledge with Li Changsun, which Li Chang skillfully uses in confronting the monsters. It is precisely the shortcut to obtaining resistance to poison that becomes the first knowledge put into practice. All of this is because Ants caused one fallen star to lose her child, her daughter, and since she was the first to share her knowledge, she holds the title of First Elder. Li Changsu, once again defeating the monsters, continues to absorb the fireballs of energy, deciding through the eruption of flames to check the level of energy earned. However, it's not enough for Li Changsun to light the trigram. To do so, he must defeat the stronger and more stubborn monsters. Meanwhile, Chun Jae continues to assert himself and reveals himself as a player puffing with rage, the one who can defeat a giant fire lizard and emerge victorious. If that's the case, then Chun Jae has all the chances to surpass Li Changsun and show his skill in battles. But looking at the system window, Chun Jae sees that being in second place to Park Ha, he is far behind Li Chang's. This fact perplexes Chun Jae, and Li Chang's takes the shortened path. To catch up with his enemy, Chun Jae asks the patron for more strength and a clue for a shortcut, to which he receives an affirmative answer from the deity. While the other players try to recover from the battle, most likely this world belongs only to special people. Weak people have nothing to do here. Most likely, the fatigue of fighting monsters that last 3 days contributes to the envy of other players who have achieved incredible success. Just at that time, Chun is notified that he's getting a new player skill that will help not only him, but the other players survive. Suddenly, the next monster appears, a fiery dog head with horns. Since it's the Mother Queen of the Mountain, at this rate, all the monsters can go to the other side, including her, who is overtaken by Li Chang's with his dagger. But if that's the case, is Li Chang shown even human? Once again delivering his deadly blow, Li Chang's defeats the maid of the Queen of the Mountain, and the bloody sun indicates that luck is once again favoring Li Chang's song. Li Chang's gets another fireball to add to his collection. Having absorbed it, Li Chang's son decides to continue his journey to complete the mission. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to a sound coming from behind him. This sound is made by a huge brown bear chasing one of the players. This player is the youngest participant available. Before she can recover, she notices a huge dagger striking the brown bear, and her savior is none other than Li Chang's, who happened to be in the neighborhood. Still unable to regain consciousness and unable to see anything around her, the girl continues to scream so Lee Chong-sun can't calm her down. He is bewildered that she is alone in the middle of the woods, but the reason is more than obvious because the other players went to the other world without surviving the ordeal. In their gullibility, they follow young Junji, who later dumps them. At this time, the girl shows on her arm a tattoo of an owl, which guarantees the presence of divine power. But in fact, such a tattoo carries a different meaning. It's the mark of a demon. It indicates that the one who has such a tattoo sells their soul to the demon, and the sign of the owl piercing the dim light looks quite different. He who bears such a brand, after he goes to the next world, gives his soul to the demon and the life force of his assistant. This means that young Jun-jae is getting very strong now, and having that stigma is a very serious thing, no matter how much one might wish to think otherwise. If it is true and it is a demon, it is very majestic and in its power, ranked above even the demon king. However, the realization of this fact does not frighten Lee Chong-zang at all, unlike the girl. She starts to ask for help and seeks Lee Chong-x's protection. But what choice does Lee Chong-song have? Since she's just a child, and not only did he protect her from the fiery bear, but she's asking him to help her. She's not backing down, she's willing to help out in everyday matters as long as Lee Chang's can help her become stronger. What else is left for Lee Chong-song when the call for help comes from a child willing to do anything for power? Surely she wants revenge for the friends who irrevocably abandoned her, and with nothing better to do, she shares the last piece of chocolate she has with Lee Chang's. However, after refusing the offer, before Lee Chang starts, he finds out from the girl about her abilities, and he needs to check her tag and work on it first. Meanwhile, Young Chun-jae continues to replenish his vitality through the passing of the next players. He grows stronger each time, and his patron rejoices as his power grows. At this moment, young Chun-jae is called out by one of the players who is following him. Annoyed at being distracted, Jang Chun-jae tries to keep his cool. But seeing his attitude and fiery gaze, the player tries to soften the situation. The player is very upset about the tattoo on her arm. It affects him in ways he doesn't expect at all. This tattoo, or even tag, is starting to limit his actions, but his speculation is interrupted by Young Chun-ji's shout. Young Jun-jae no longer wants to tolerate his lethargy, and eventually, someone found what Young Jun-jae asked me to find. However, the player does come to realize that this mark turns them into slaves to Cho-chun, forcing them to run errands. At this time, Jang Chun-jae orders the players to get up as an attack on the boss is planned, and the feeling of hatred overwhelms him for Lee Chong-zang. He will avenge all his suffering. Rage consumes him. Meanwhile, something is happening to the girl who joined Lee Chong-zang. She has an ability she never had before, and that piques the interest of the gods who watch over the rapidly evolving players. The girl activates a skill called Storm Run. This skill works well against zombies by distraction, which means that the rune of captivity is very useful against zombies and successfully acts against them, which are easily destroyed. At least while the girl using the Storm Run skill distracts them, Lee Chang's wields his dagger, sending zombies to the other side. The girl is very good at applying this skill, and it's running away beautifully, which has its positives. Since that's the case, why not apply a captivity rune to her so that the monsters only follow her? The rest is taken care of by Lee Chang's. The girl should only run around distracting the zombies. That's her main function. She can't think of anything else? Zombie Lee Chong-zang is taking over. After all, Lee Chan easily sends them one by one to the other side of the world, and he needs to make sure they're all done. At least the girl is responsible for that, and besides, her job is to collect all the monsters within a 300-meter radius, which she's good at. But that will be enough, as she will not be able to defeat those monsters that will appear, and therefore she needs to run as far away from here as possible. Full of trust in Lee Chong-zang, the girl agrees to his proposal. After seeing the girl off and being left alone, Lee Chong-zang begins to think about what to do next. But his musings are interrupted by a splash of black slurry indicating the monster's approach. That black slurry splashing around so much turns out to be nothing but poison. The next main boss monster to appear in the arena is the rotting plague spider. His strength and power begin to tear blocks of stone to shreds, so much so that it attracts the attention of a girl who was already far away from the place where she last met Lee Chong-zang. The size of the rotting plague spider is very impressive and terrifies the girl, throwing her off her feet. It is this monster that Lee Chan will have to confront. From the effects created by either the movement or the energy generated, Lee Chan covers his face with his hand, and at that moment, his gaze changes to a bright light, a sign of his supernatural power, and his eyes change into eyes with snake-like pupils. But in addition to the plague spider, he is accompanied by a huge number of zombies, and if you look closely, There's an unimaginable crowd of them, and they're attached to something. Something is the front paw of the plague monster, studded with zombies from beginning to end. The plague spider begins to make movements in preparation for an attack. Once again, the jet of air almost blows Li Changzong away as he tries to stay on his feet. Then, quite timely, a certain deity snake coiling the world gives Li Chang's the skill of snake eyes that will help him orient his thinking over the actions. If that's the case, then Li Changzong should show what he can do. He has to prove to the deity who he is, and who he really is, and it is necessary to act immediately without wasting a minute. Therefore, Li Changzong activates the weak poison resistance skill, and since the skill of weak resistance to poison is improved, the poison caught in the body is destroyed by the accumulated fire energy. The achievement obtained is now 666 fireballs, plus 5 to stamina and fire characteristic enhancement. With this advantage, Li Changzong rushes towards the rotting plague spider, and as he leaps, he's about to strike at the paw that the zombies burrowed into. Swinging his dagger around, Li Changzong slashes the claw of the huge monster. The first blow of pain to the rotting plague spider is struck, but in order to be able to ignite the flames of the 8 trigrams, Li Changzong would need a binding fuel. For these purposes, the ideal solution will be a poison whose action will have the best effect. But in order not to miss with the choice of poison, it must be the best, and perhaps the best solution is the venom found in the venom glands of the plague spider. These glands on the spider's body are numerous, but you have to choose the right place to strike, and that place is right next to the heart. Without thinking long, Li Changzong makes a leap onto the monster's back and strikes with a dagger to reach his intended target. But you have to remember that the bite of a rotting plague spider is very strong, so you may not get a second chance. Li Changzong soon starts to notice that the zombies' heads begin spewing green orbs, which then turn to liquid and start gushing in all directions. It's a small matter for Li Changzong to not get hit, and he manages to jump back. As it turns out, the glands contain not poison but acid, and what Li Changzong achieved in 3 days is not enough. Therefore, it is necessary to find a way out of the current situation, and the first step is to be able to escape from the spider monster. Li Changzong is leaving the confrontation field. Meanwhile, young Jun Jae continues his search for the big boss, and together with the players accompanying him, gets into a clearing full of zombies. But to his deep disappointment, they have already been sent to the other side of the world. It's impossible, and it just can't be Lian again. Turning to the system window again, Zhang Chun-jae notices that his rating has slightly increased compared to Li Changzong, and the deity that protects him begins to warn young Chun-jae of trouble if he doesn't live up to his trust. This is the last chance the deity will give young Jun-jae, therefore, one should make every effort to get the deity interested again. No matter what paths his opponent takes, young Jun-jae finds out that Li Chang's is currently confronting a plague spider. This is already becoming the last straw in young Jun-jae's patience. He can't let it go this time, so he has to hurry up. Meanwhile, Li Changzong comes up with an idea to trap the spider. Naturally, his enemy is irritated and in an unstable state, and then Li Changzong remembers the last goodbye to the girl who happily reports the job done and her happy, trusting face eager for the next orders. But he has to run. To realize the plan, Li Changzong is coming up with, and the rotting plague spider, unsuspecting Li Chang's, continues to stalk Li Chang's and finally falls into the trap so skillfully designed and disguised by Li Chang's. Everything turns out exactly as Li Changzong planned. His trap succeeded. The next step is activating the explosion rune, which works as intended. A huge column of fire blasts outward from where the spider hit. Yes, it works, and the rotting plague spider is perfectly amenable to fire. Finally, a rune of penetration is activated that pierces through the monster's flesh. It looks funny, and the deity snake coiling the world is pretty much how the spider got trapped. Li Changzong once again adds to his bank of achievements by getting the mouse in the trap, new skill, weak trap, and plus 5 intelligence as a reward. And that's just the beginning. He's not going to stop there. However, Li Changzong was wrong when he thought he was done with the spider. The rotting plague spider is diligently grasping for life, and he's not the only one still trying to get to his enemy, following Li Sung with one of his many eyes but having a certain significance. The hero has nothing left to do but go back and finish what he started. Most likely, the rotting plague spider is the final boss since you can't just do away with it. Li Changzong has no choice but to cut the rope he uses to escape and jump down to the monster to deliver his decisive blow, which just happens to fall into one of the leading holes. Realizing his defeat, the bleeding rotting plague spider tries to turn to flee. Having figured him out, Li Changzong decides to thwart his plan by catching up with the weakened, plague-ridden, rotting creature and swinging from above, delivering a series of decisive blows to him with his dagger. The blows follow one after another, and finally, finally finish off the weakened spider. The spider will finally be finished soon, and he's going to the other side of the world to his buddies. At this time, young Chunji and his entourage of servants arrive at the scene of Li Changsung's fight with the plague-rotting spider. Young Junjae is horrified to see this outcome, and he doesn't expect to be late to the event. Once again, he loses and succumbs to his blood enemy, Li Changsung. Looking from the side, Zhang Chunjae sees the scarred carcass of a huge spider on its deathbed. But if they come forward now and reveal themselves, there's a chance they won't survive. It's better to leave this dirty business to Li Changsung and wait until the two warring parties are completely exhausted. We'll just have to bide our time, it'll all be over soon. Then we can show ourselves, and it's better if Young Junjae acts stealthily. For that, we need a plan of action, and without thinking long, Young Chunjae comes up with the perfect idea to strike Li Changs while distracting him. If he targets Li Changsung with players who are willing to do anything for him because of the mark, then Zhang Chunjae's chances will increase. Considering that Li Changs does not want and avoids casualties among ordinary people, the task at hand will be easy. But there are risks involved, so Young Junjae needs a hostage to manipulate Li Changsung, and for this role, the girl running away below is perfect. But Young Junjae thinks she's long gone. A Juicy, that's her name, she's a good counterpart, and it's the perfect opportunity for luck to finally be on Young Junji's side, and he needs to use it right. Meanwhile, the unsuspecting Li Changs continues to throw a series of punches. He skillfully and accurately dagger slashes the huge body of the rotting spider, destroying zombies time after time, avoiding their bites, and reaching the cherished eye. Soon, it would be over, and Li Changs, after a successful series of blows, finally stabs his dagger, which becomes critical and the last for the spider. Finally, the plague of the decomposing spider is over once and for all. The hero successfully completes the mission and brings the monster's condition to a critical state, eventually sending the monster to the other side of the world with no right to return. Having gotten to what Li Changsung has been striving for so long, he finally has it in his hands. He is a true winner who deserves the award of giving Li Changs more opportunities, and without wasting any time, Li Changsung absorbs it to gain new powers. After taking a sip of it, Li Changsung starts to feel a change, which indicates he's moving to a new 20th level of play, meaning Li Changsung is finishing the 5th and final stage that is needed for the dungeon recovery task. His abilities cause many gods to take an interest in Li Changsung. That worries the snake that coils around the world, which first showed interest in him. Just at this moment, thinking that Li Changsung is weakened, Zhang Junjae decides to take action. It's likely that after losing his strength against the monster, Li Changsung is so exhausted that he can't stand up. This means that right now, Zhang Junjae is directing his players to turn on Li Changsung, and while the players are attacking Li Changsung, Zhang Chunjae will hide among them to strike. But what Young Chunjae sees when he looks at Li Changs is perplexing. It's even more likely to wonder why Li Chang's mouth is spreading into a smile. In fact, Li Chang's is not even smiling but already laughing. What's even going on, and what can make Li Chang's laugh so hard? There's sure to be an upcoming fun event that makes Li Chang laugh so hard because Young Chunjae and his entire entourage of subjects are trapped in a trap without ever reaching Li Chang. This realization strikes fear into Young Chunjae, who doesn't even know what it all means. Li Chang, who is still excited about what's going on, continues to mock because Young Chunjae and everyone else with him got it wrong without noticing he messed up somewhere and made a mistake. But Young Chunjae doesn't give up his attempt to attack Li Chang and sends the player escorts to deal with him. Naturally, Li Chang is ready for this and accepts this challenge even though he's facing ordinary people. They've been ordered to destroy him, and with the ease of his dagger, Li Chang sends his abusers to the other side, who are under Young Chunjae's command and continue to try to restrain Li Chang. So now Li Chang has to go on a quest called Escape from the Trap. And it's more than interesting. The challenge is accepted, time to act. Li Chang clears a path of human bodies to get to his enemy. There's not much left, and Li Chang's goal will be accomplished. Finally, he gets to Young Chun for a strike, and the confrontation between the two sides begins as their blades converge at the same point. But what happens next is not what Young Chunjae expects, and he's not quite ready for it. Once again, luck is on Li Chang's side. Young Chunjae is weaker than him, and this weakness causes him to be wounded in his right hand, holding the dagger. Yes, it means that fortune is once again favoring Li Chang, who defeated his enemy by taking away his working limb. Naturally, Young Chun must do something to avoid losing his life, and after avoiding another blow from Li Chang, Young Chun flees while hiding behind the backs of his fellow players. They are ordered to stop Li Chang, but for Li Chang, it's just a warm-up, and he will stop at nothing, even for the common people. Li Chang is strong enough, and to defeat him, Young Chun will need more strength. In order to do that, he needs to send more victims to the other side. Meanwhile, the lieutenant is standing on a rock, watching a picture that is painfully familiar to him. He's been down this path before, and now the gods have chosen Li Chang, while Young Chun Jae plays a minor role in this game, only needed to train Li Chang. It was like that last time, and the terrible events begin to resurface in the lieutenant's memory. Young Chun Jae keeps sending players to the other world to get their life force to become stronger, but what happens when the mark on your arm stops working? Meanwhile, Li Chang is about to strike Young Chun Jae after overcoming obstacles. He's close enough for Young Chun to react, and yes, Li Chang is quite strong. Unlike Young Chun Jae, he is far superior in strength and ability. Unable to cope with the pressure and the fact that his working arm is damaged, Young Chun Jae gets hit on his healthy arm. There is no doubt that Li Chang is once again the winner, and he will reach the end without getting proper resistance. With a swing, Li Chang strikes again, taking away Young Chun Jae's left arm. Now Young Chun Jae has both his arms immobilized, and one of them is missing. In the meantime, the vitality from the defeated players is draining away, but they're not going to Young Chun Jae like before, they're going past him. It's his only source of extra strength. To Young Chun Jae's surprise, they pass to his enemy Li Chang. For reasons unknown, this causes Young Chun Jae to be perplexed and afraid because he doesn't understand why this is happening. Meanwhile, Li Chang is starting to remember where he heard that name before, Young Chun Jae. An insight finally starts to come to Li Chang. He tries to remember where he's encountered him before, and Young Chun Jae is sure that Li Chang remembers him because Young Chun Jae knows so much about him. But unfortunately, no matter how hard Li Chang tries, he can't think of anything. This realization, and the fact that Li Chang doesn't remember Young Chun Jae, makes the latter cringe. How can Li Chang not remember him? Because he got Young Chun Jae kicked out of the BP Cyber Sports Club. Finally, it's clues like this that make Li Chang come to mind. He finally remembered what their last meeting was like, Young Chun Jae humiliating himself in front of Li Chang, and in tears, grasping at a last-ditch effort to keep him at the club. If that guy is Young Chun Jae, he's just as disgusted with Young Chun as he was before, and just like then, Li Chang has no pity, only disgust. But being in a bad position, Young Chun Jae is the last thing he wants to hear. Using his last strength, he aims his blade at Li Chang to strike, but this picture is no longer of any interest to Li Chang, nor is the deity who patronized Young Chun Jae. No longer can Young Chun Jae wait for help from his patron, his last hour has come. He begins to realize that he is playing the role of an extra and only that, everything that was before is self-deception. He loses again to none other than his worst enemy, Li Chang, and Young Chun Jae knows what's next for him. And it's something that makes him even more afraid. In the meantime, moments of memories from his past life, of shame and humiliation that he endured, begin to flicker through his brain. Here is the winner of the competition, Le Chang-sung, surrounded by fans, while Young Chun Jae has to stand in the shadows and just watch. Le Chang-sung is on the podium, and he's raising the winner's trophy, while Young Chun Jae is just envious. If envy and the desire for revenge hadn't consumed him, then perhaps Young Chun Jae wouldn't have gotten stuck in the gate following the offender. What happened to Young Chun Jae is now a matter of one man's fault, and that person is Le Chang-sung. Now Young Chun Jae is going to be punished for it. He failed to live up to the deity's expectations, and now he's going to the next world. Young Jun's story ends, and since that's the case, according to the sealed contract, Young Jae's life energy will be transferred to the owner. As if by the wave of a wand, energy begins to erupt from Young Chun Jae's body, but there's so much of it that the energy reserves are becoming overflowing, and it will take some time for Le Chang-sung, as the new owner, to fully absorb it. What was the surprise of the surviving players when they saw Le Chang-sung absorb it? A new rune appears on Le Chang-sung's neck through which the power is transferred to him. But realizing that he's in danger, Le Chang-sung modifies the owl brand that is on the hand of the girl who found his patronage. These changes result in a new mark appearing next to the owl, indicating that it is owned by Young Chun Jae. Fearing that the girl may not be able to withstand the energy, Le Chang-sung puts the rune of transition on her hand, thanks to which all the power will be transferred to him. But such an act disturbs the deity patronizing Le Chang-sung because the incoming energy is different from his energy, which means he has to be very careful with it, as greed will not lead to anything good. Meanwhile, Le Chang-sung continues to absorb energy without paying attention to the warning. Yes, he guesses that he's being tested, and this test amuses a certain constellation that has not yet revealed itself to Le Chang-sung and wants to gift him something. Suddenly, something unthinkable begins to happen. Life energy begins to emanate from the hands of the remaining players. The life energy sends them to the other world, and that is the gift the constellation speaks of. That's probably not what Le Changsun wants as a gift from the constellation. Now, Le Changsun is faced with the choice of continuing to grow stronger or stopping this madness. Yes, that's exactly what happened last time, and the lieutenant remembers a similar picture as clearly as what he sees now. If Le Changsun didn't live up to their expectations, they would have all been sent to the other side by now. That look is a familiar look that means nothing, and those lifeless eyes will surely take the life out of all the players. Of course, Le Changsun will not refuse the gift that God has given him, as Le Changsun's hand suddenly waits on the no button in the system window. He makes his choice to interrupt the countdown and stop the bullying, which perplexes the deity. But Le Changsun doesn't try to trust those who are hiding upstairs without even revealing their names. Not thinking long, before he didn't know his name was unknown, he decides to reveal his name. It's Mephistopheles, the demon stalking the abyss. To his disappointment, Le Changsun doesn't know this deity. He was only attracted by the word demon in the sacred name. However, Mephistopheles is a deity who is superior in status to Tiamat and is one of the most terrifying creatures who prefers solitude. This deity is eager to know the reason why Le Changsun is making this decision, but the constellation blessed with hunting season, in turn, demands that demon stop pressuring Le Changsun, who is his property. This clash between PG and Mephistopheles could play a significant role in Le Changsun's favor, as it suddenly becomes known that the dungeon is about to close. The countdown is on. But there is still his familiar girl who has found his protection and patronage. However, the captivity rune that Le Changsun had placed on the girl's arm played in the right direction and attracted the target's attention. The girl is trying her best to get to Le Changsun to find out how she can reach him. Meanwhile, Le Changsun stands in front of the dungeon and throws her a knife as a farewell. Not thinking long, the girl easily catches it, but that's not all. She can get rid of the seal completely if she arrives at the address on the hilt of this knife, because Le Changsun doesn't have that kind of power and competence. And it's time to say goodbye. Leaving the girl behind, Le Changsun leaves the dungeon without her, and the dungeon closes its doors. All players have accomplished their mission. A flash of light and voices all around bring the girl to her senses. Now she is not in a dungeon, but in the city on the street, with reporters' cameras pointed at her. Among her kind, she's fine, and the dungeon she was in has been cleaned up with just one person's help. Suddenly, among the crowd, the girl sees her own mom and dad running towards her. Yes, she survived, and now she can hug them. One of the few who made it out of the dungeon, but then what happened to Ajasi? Where is he now? Probably among the crowd. The student tries to find him among the crowd of people looking for him among the rescued, but to her regret, among the vast number of faces, she does not see him. That familiar face, who has done so much for her, their meeting from the exit to the dungeon was their last, and all that was left of him was a knife with his address stamped on the handle. Meanwhile, Li Changzong, sitting on the bridge, is finally calm, and he's back home. He doesn't even care that Mephistopheles keeps waiting for an answer from him, while the serpent that coils around the world teases him even so. Li Chang doesn't live up to his expectations. Watching the night sky is much more enjoyable. At last, he's finally home. He's back where he belongs. However, the deity of hunting time isn't happy with Li Changzong interacting with other deities, but this fact is very amusing to the serpent deity, who coils around the world. The great devil, who chases the abyss, ignoring hostility, waits for Li Changzong's response while he strolls through the city, and the deity of hunting time is, in turn, trying to win Li Chang over to his side, whereas the great devil, who chases the abyss, will continue to wait for Li Changzong to respond. It's because Li Changzong has succeeded in his training that many divine entities are now interested in him. Now Li Changzong has to make a choice in favor of one divine being who will stay with him until the end. First, to offer the role of the first era is the divine being of hunting time. If Li Changzong chooses her, in turn, the snake deity wrapped around the world gives him the role of wise enlightened one, as Li Chang is cunning and power-hungry. The great devil, who chases the abyss, while continuing to wait for an answer, promises Li Changzong the role of the last watcher. But after careful consideration, Li Changzong thinks that the most useful for him would be Pwag, Jormungand, and Mephistopheles because the other deities are not comparable to these three and are quite useless. Although after some reflection, Li Chang comes to one thought: there is another deity playing a significant role, and just as the divine being owl-piercing Twilight showed interest in Li Changzong's personality, yes, and that deity is Manhwa, the one who truly possesses the seal that Mesto supposedly possessed. Manhwa is a god who constantly stands on the side of justice, showing interest in Li Changzong. It was most likely when Li Changzong overcame the temptation of the seal to save the remaining players by balancing the scales. Meanwhile, The 9 gods are waiting for Li Changsong's answer. Choosing a patron god is necessary to be on par with players of that level, but for all the thinking, Li Chang doesn't have time to make his choice because time is up, and currently, Li Chang doesn't have a deity to protect him. For this, Li Changzong gets a new achievement called the charming man who refused all of the gods' offers. This fact angers the divine entities who had previously shown interest in him, and Li Chang in no way expects it to be more difficult than in Danan. At this time, a certain association, WPCF, which stands for World Council of Players for Freedom, starts searching for Li Chang's son. This association was created to man the dungeons and gates that have appeared and altered the Earth's ecosystem. It is under the security of the United Nations, and here in this association with transnational status and investigative powers, they can't understand what's going on at all. Why can't they figure out this baffling dungeon breach situation? Most likely, it's all a media stunt that has repeatedly screwed them over, and this time is no exception. At the end of the day, how tired they are of it all. The employee responsible on the spot, because it's been 5 whole days, and in that time, she managed to evacuate residents and create a line of defense, finished preparing other countries in case of emergency. And what did she come to? What did she get in return? Looking at an article that talks about the man in the veil, how could such information even get out to the press? She lit her cigarette in annoyance, but getting reprimanded about it makes her even angrier, really losing her temper. After all, she had repeatedly given the task of blocking all outside contacts, knowing full well that it was not easy to do so. But luckily, no one in the press paid attention to L, so who would believe that a rookie closed the dungeon alone and disappeared? He looks like a civilian. Maybe he's a demon, so we need to find him before the clans do, even though they didn't pick him up on all the security cameras. Then, out of the blue, they say they found him, and if that's true, then where is he now? How strange it was to hear back that the newcomer they'd been chasing for so long was at home. Still continuing to disbelieve what they hear, they try to realize what is real, and at the same time, Li Changzong crosses the threshold of his house and is greeted by a dog. There's food cooking on the stove as if it's been waiting for him, and he hasn't disappeared anywhere. The woman is still standing at the stove, wondering if Li Changzong is hungry. There's nothing like the smell of kimchi jjigae soup, and Li Changzong continues to stand at the entrance of the house and inhale that fragrance, ignoring the remarks on his appearance. This soup flavor is great, considering Li Chang hated it before. At this time, the dog that greeted him happily tries to get Li Chang's attention. Kakuna is the dog's name, and out of joy, he continues to lick Li Chang's face while greeting him. The woman interrupts their meeting to invite them to the table because the soup is ready. But before sitting down at the table, Li Changsong needs to clean himself up and take a bath. After all these years, Li Changsong is finally home. The table is set and waiting for the whole household to gather around it, but despite the abundance of food and the gathered company at the table, for some reason, everyone is silent. Rather, this is the reason why Li Changsong previously avoided sticking to it, and the scene of a man and a woman saying goodbye begins to flash before my eyes. They are about to leave the house. Actually, Li Chang doesn't come from a simple family. His father has his own big hospital, and his mother's family consists of lawyers or diplomats. Li Chang's older brother went into the medical field like their father, and his younger sister succeeded in the music field. Therefore, she often stayed late at work as she gave many concerts. Meanwhile, Li Changsong has always been obsessed with games and striving to win, so it's not surprising that the relatives aren't thrilled with his absence. That's the main reason why Li Changsong doesn't feel anything in his ancestral home. But his silence, associated with such long thoughts and memories, is interrupted by a voice. The question that was asked brings Li Chang out of the stupor he's in while eating soup. After all, he was asked a perfectly fair question to which he wants a coherent answer. After all, Li Chang doesn't realize that when the Jamsil gate opened, and Li Chang disappeared, his mother fainted because of him. His older brother called all the hospitals in Seoul to find Li Changsong, and his younger sister didn't go abroad because she was searching for him. And now, Li Chang is coming home and eating his mother's food as if nothing has happened. This is the kind of reception Li Changsong expected when he returned home, and his father keeps telling him off for not being fair to his relatives. In case this situation happens again, he better not come back. It's likely that Li Chang's behavior is because he's ashamed of what happened, but not wanting to hear any more of Li Chang's excuses, his father abruptly storms off to work. He doesn't want to be in that situation anymore, so he doesn't say anything unnecessary. Li Changsong still continues to remain silent, and walks him to the door. My father is probably saying all this because he's very angry, and at times like this, he's not in control. Knowing his father, Li Changsong has no choice but to agree with his mother. At that moment, Li Changsong really starts to look at his mother. How had he never noticed she had so many wrinkles before? And why was Li Changsong so unfair and careless to her? He kept waiting for his family to accept him, but at the same time, he did nothing for himself to lighten the mood. His mother suggests that Li Changsong rest in his room, but Li Changsong asks his mother for forgiveness. In turn, the mother in no way expects to hear such words from her son. The hero assures his mom that he will be careful from now on, and won't let her worry. When Li Changsong enters his room, it's a mess. How had he never noticed what a pigsty he was living in before? It must have been disturbing. Suddenly, a noise arose and distracted Li Changsong from his sad thoughts, but it turns out it's just a puppy running into his master's room. Nevertheless, it is necessary to take control of yourself and begin to unravel the tangle that has formed and not to be put off. It's time to start cleaning. At the same time, a yellow car was speeding along the busy highway of the city, close to 100 in the city and the country. The vehicle was driven by a WPCF employee with her assistant, and their path was heading towards the end point, which is the rookie, who unsuspectingly, after a long cleaning session, was able to lie down on his bed. The divine entities never failed to release their comments to him, as if even his recreation is of interest to them. Without paying any attention to them, Li Changsong once again scrolls through the moments of meeting and fighting with his family members. We need to do something to change their opinion of Li Chang. They need to prove that Li Chang has changed from being an alcoholic who hangs around other people's necks to an independent adult. There's a way out of this situation. Li Changsong needs to become a player to be accepted by his family. Having made this decision, Li Changsong prepares to realize the second plan much earlier than expected. It's likely that the ruler of the abyss won't be slowing down in this place. Immediately, Li Chang's mind goes back to one of his conversations with Thanatos, where he wonders who he should get even with first, and that being is a certain ruler who lives in Li Chang's world. Naturally, Li Changsong has a question about who this ruler is, as it turns out Li Chang knows him even intimately. A tiger trapped in a trap of hardship says something to Changsun. Of course, Li Changsong didn't realize it himself. Is Li Changzong nemesis, who was sure to be present at his divine judgment. Li Changzong still remembers how pleased he was with the verdict Li Changzong was given as he laughed heartily. However, to get to him will not be so easy because he has many subordinates, and he is very cunning and clever. Suddenly, Li Changzong's cell phone receives a message about clan recruitment. According to the announcement, in a month, we'll be recruiting new players to the White Tiger clan. It is known that the formation of clans contributed to the opening of the gate through which the gods and stars began to appear on Earth and give their blessings, and the White Tiger clan is no exception. But he didn't bother with the name, and so his followers are the White Tigers. This clan is quite huge and ranks first among the other clans prevalent in Korea. Li Changzong decides to take Li Changzong up on this idea and offer since he doesn't have the strength for war at the moment, which means we should try to finish all the preparations in a month without anyone noticing. After saying goodbye to his mom for a while, Li Changzong goes to a park near the Han River, which is far enough away to drive there again. After letting the cab go, Li Changzong considers his next course of action. He should try to choose a suitable place, which is just a forest. Without a second thought, Li Changzong starts his journey into the thick of the forest. By all means, he should do a good job of making sure no one and nothing distracts him while he's doing it. But there's something wrong with his stomach, so he has to take a bathroom break. It's because Li Changzong ate too much kimchi at lunch due to a bout of hunger, and is now feeling uncomfortable. To remedy the situation, Li Changzong tries to use the skills he used in the dungeon, but to his disappointment, he can't succeed, even though he tries. So Li Changzong resorts to the old way, but his body will be shocked, as Li Changzong hasn't used the toilet for quite a long time. It's even likely that this process is causing him some difficulty. Having successfully accomplished the task, Li Changzong decides to continue, but he needs to get as far away from prying eyes as possible, even if he has to hide in the mountains where no one will interfere. After finally reaching the right place, Li Changzong decides to settle here. To begin with, he needs to let some of his blood flow with a dagger. The resulting blood splashes onto tree trunks, drawing runes. This means that Li Changzong will activate the stealth rune to form a protective shield. Li Changzong is now protected from the outside world by an invisible barrier. In order to continue his work, Li Changzong needs to undress, which he successfully does, further revealing the system windows in front of him. Li Changzong looks at their contents to select an inventory from the selection presented. There is a bone spear made from the ribs of a Bengal iX, a small shield made from the skull of a fire salamander, the poisonous fang of the blood mamba, the clenched claw of the Bengal tiger, and the ice-cold beak of the ice kite. The sting of the subterranean scorpion. Finally, Li Changzong finds just the right poison glands of a plague spider that he devours. By using them, Li Changzong makes the right choice for himself because poison is the perfect tool to start a bigger fire. After all, the energy stored in Le Chang's body is the fire that is known for repelling poison and destroying evil. That is the fire of purification. It incinerates things that can harm Le Changzong's body, and the stronger the substance, the hotter the fire. Only in this case, if all conditions are met, can the fire become the fire of the 8 trigrams. After all, the fire of the 8 trigrams is beautiful because it is the best means of cleansing the body of foreign substances and accumulated waste. To test it, you have to try, and Le Changzong starts with his heart by sticking a poisonous blood mamba fang into it. But in reality it turns out that Li Changzong lacks resistance to poisons, so he needs to get rid of the fang as soon as possible and begin detoxification. However, Li Changzong fully absorbs the venom and acquires the snake venom gene while still in critical condition, and the hero, ignoring this, continues to affect the liver and intestines by choosing the clenched claws of a Bengal tiger. This performance stirred up the divine entities who had previously shown interest in Li Changzong. Meanwhile, he continues to stab his spleen with the sting of the subterranean scorpion. This time, he is on the verge of passing away, and it seems to be the end. But Li Changzong absorbs the poison glands of the plague spider that penetrate the lungs to reveal the hidden part. Now all 5 organs where the poison has entered are completely filled with it, and the conflict between the different poisons begins. Due to the conflict of poisons affecting his body, Li Changzong's poisoning begins to intensify. But unfortunately, as much as Li Changzong would like to, resistance to poisons is ineffective. He fails in his experiment. If Li Changzong doesn't take action and detoxify, he's going to die. But for now, his body is paralyzed by the resulting effects of the poisons, and Li Changzong continues to wait, while the fire inside him is still dormant. Finally, his body begins to spew a fountain of fire, fire! The fire within Li Changzong begins to awaken, coming out of his passive state. Now, he's not just throwing out streams of fire, he's going on a rampage. This means that Li Changzong was able to discover the hidden part that makes the fire grow stronger. Li Chang's finally succeeds in lighting the legendary ancient sacred fire of the 8 trigrams. His body is restored and purified. The character gains the magical power of the rooster and masters the attribute of fire, which means the achievement is complete, and Li Changzong gains immunity to 10 poisons. In order to check what Li Changzong ends up getting, he opens the system window. Satisfied with the result, he sees Li Changzong takes on the task of choosing a weapon. Meanwhile, WPCF officials come to his apartment to catch Li Changzong. Having been invited to come in, WPCF staffers go inside. But what a surprise when they walk into the apartment and find someone else besides them. This person is throwing barbs at the association and knows Agent Cha Won. That someone is none other than Wu Yungan, the head of the Sword of Wisdom clan, and Xiao Zhangquan, the second leader of the White Tiger Saber Tiger group. At this time, Cha Wong analyzes the situation and admits that she acted extremely carelessly. But somewhere around Su, in a cobbler's alley, Li Changzong is walking home in a hurry, simultaneously taking a bite out of the sausage and batter from which the cheese is pulling so appetizingly. Undoubtedly, the magical power is not even close to that which fills Li Changzong's body from eating the food. Again, the memories of his conversation with the king of the underworld pop into his mind. It's about choosing weapons, which means Li Changzong will need a blacksmith who can fulfill his needs. But does such a person really exist, or is it fiction? However, the Lord of the Underworld confirmed the existence of such a blacksmith. In his musings, Li Changzong reaches the planned location, but it turns out the one he needs has been closed for over 5 years. I mean, it's been 5 whole years since they were shut down. However, something is wrong here that makes Li Changzong not leave this place. If you look hard enough, there's something going on here. Just behind the closed door comes the smell of holy fire, which means there's a not-so-bad roasting going on in there. Indeed, Li Changzong's hunch is confirmed by the deity of hunting time, who also smells good steel, which means we need to cut the chains that lock the doors to the inside. Having successfully pulled it off, Li Changzong lifts the door and sees the weapons depot. The room is just full of it, and it's made of good metal. Isn't this the heaven on earth? At least that's what the deity of hunting time thinks. The gun is actually made of good metal, which speaks to the high quality of the product. But Li Changzong's attention is drawn to another item, resembling metal decayed from corrosion, which leads to the amazement of hunt time. However, Li Changzong's gaze is fixed on this particular strange item, despite the fact that there are plenty of other worthy items around him. Yes, this exposed weapon is just the thing that merits interest and attention. Just as Li Changsung was thinking, someone called out to him. A man appears in the room with a hyena-like dog. This really surprises and alarms Li Changsung at the same time. It's more likely that he was confronted by a man who was partially or completely blind. That's the encounter. Meanwhile, at Li Changsung's apartment, the unexpected guests are taking treats while waiting for the newcomer. Li Changsung's mother shows hospitality and offers to eat fruit while they wait. Her appearance elicits admiration and a kind of adoration among the arrivals. It's likely that the number of recruits is now worth its weight in gold to the clans. But is there a point of growth from squad leaders to department heads? Interestingly, the clan leaders are pretending to be someone they're not, considering it's about a super rookie. On the same day, for example, the White Tiger clan leader and raid squad leader Seo Jun Kwan wears a false mustache because he thinks all strong warriors do. Or Wu Yungan, the head of human resources in the 5-star sword clan, part-time uncle of Wahiban, who survived the gate. This time, it's strange that a group like that would come together for some super rookie. There must be something about Li Changsung, but it's just one person. If others can't recruit Li Changsung, others won't try. Then why not try to talk the White Tiger clan head out of his idea? In fact, they were the ones who started stealing their secrets from the association. There is no doubt that a conflict is brewing between two representatives, namely a WPCF employee and the leader of the White Tiger clan. Just to be clear, Li Changsung's mother is trying to clarify if it's true that they want to recruit him, to which she receives an affirmative answer from both representatives. So, the three clans want Li Changsung for their company. After listening to each of the representatives' explanations, Li Changsung's mother accepts the answers. However, Li Changsung feels that she has no right to be responsible for him. This is not the answer that the representatives of each organization expect to hear. Wanting to know the details of what happened to Li Changsung in the Jamsil dungeon, his mother tries to find out some of the circumstances. Meanwhile, the action unfolds behind the walls of the store, which is supposedly closed for about 5 years. The hero wants a blind stranger to make a weapon for him, even disregarding the condition the blind man is in right now. Li Changs completely trusts him. At the same time, the opinions of the deity are divided. Hunting Time believes that the weapon is not made blind, but the snake that coils the world asks it not to interfere. However, the blind stranger takes Li Changsung's offer as a mockery of him and leaves, accompanied by his dog. In trying to stop the blind stranger, Li Changsung notices that it is now the friar that is running, and those calluses that Li Changsung sees on the blind stranger's hands say otherwise. But these remarks are beginning to piss off the blind stranger. Nevertheless, Li Changsung doesn't try to stop and observes that the dog, who became the blind stranger's eyes, is very thin, which indicates financial difficulties. This remark works on the blind stranger and even piques his interest. After all, Li Changsung is offering him a round sum, not only for each request but also for the final work regardless of the result, plus bonuses. To finally assure the blind stranger that his request is serious, Li Changsung asks for the account number for the deposit. Without delay, Li Changsung makes a down payment of 10 million won, and in case it's not enough, Li Changsung is willing to add to the deposit. To his shame, the blind stranger says it's not enough and needs more money, which is something Li Changsung doesn't expect to hear. However, the blind stranger explains that he needs another 5 million won to pay off his rent debt, and Li Changsung honors his request by adding another 5 million won to the stranger's account. After receiving the stated amount of money, the blind stranger asks what Li Chang wants from him. However, the blind stranger in no way expects to hear what is demanded of him. That's the promise he has to make to Li Changsung. This promise is that if a blind stranger takes money from Li Changsung, he should only work for him and call him boss. Now, getting down to business, the blind stranger specifies what must be done. In addition to the whip, spear, axe, sword, and shield, he also needs a bow and arrow. When the blind stranger hears what they want from him, he decides he can't do it, but if he refuses, he must pay 3 times as much. The blind stranger realizes he's trapped, plus another 100 million won is thrown in by Li Changsung for materials. Yet the insults that Li Chang hears about himself are not the least bit embarrassing. He often hears this from people. Li Changsung doesn't stop trusting the blind stranger for the first time, more like yes than no, considering Li Changsung is a man with the disadvantage of blindness, but such issues should not arise between the person who pays and the person who takes orders. It's called a good contract. Having received quite clear explanations, the blind man takes up the order, but due to the long absence of work with iron, he will need more time. But that's not all, as there is a bigger problem, and it's far more important than anything else. The already annoying Li Changsung is still curious about the nature of the problem. The problem is that a blind man needs a special hammer to work, which he doesn't have at the moment. But where it could have gone, probably someone took it. Indeed, the hammer had been stolen by the blind man's older brother, who had joined a large clan after their father's death. This fact makes Li Chang's son tense. What other clan did the blind stranger's older brother join? As it turns out, this clan is the current Haof clan. The name of this clan is unfamiliar to Li Chang's son, and this is the first time he's heard it, not even taking into account that Haof is currently one of the top 10 clans. Nevertheless, Li Chang's son assures the blind stranger that he will retrieve the sword, just to find out where the place is. But the blind stranger tries to dissuade Li Chang's son by saying that the place in question is extremely dangerous. However, it doesn't matter. Li Chang is only required to leave no evidence behind. After hearing these words, the blind stranger is delighted to admit that he is still attracted to Li Chang's son, not even knowing how Li Chang or the boss is going to do it, but he's going to do it. This place is located in Seoul's Janggitum, where Mat Bangha is, so the next location for Li Chang's son is Bangha Jungango, where he arrives. There's only one explanation why they recruited Jin Daiwan, the older brother of the blind man, in Haof, and this explanation is that the clan wants to open the tomb to clean out the dungeon set up for the tomb, and Haof recruited Jin Daiwan because he was the first to spot the place they couldn't find. This room is probably shaped like a castle, which means if this room is so hard to find, it may be harboring interesting items. But looking at the moon, Li Chang's son notices that it's about 29 in the evening, which means they have to warn mom he's running late and have dinner on the way home. Satisfied with his ingenuity and invented excuse, Li Chang's son sends a message to the address. Since the phone's out, it wouldn't hurt to find out more about the Haof clan. According to an internet source, the Haof clan has been linked to drug drinking, drunkenness, and human trafficking, kidnapping, and even taking murder orders. So, if something goes wrong and Li Changzang sends them all to the other side, it won't surprise anyone, since the clan is no more valuable than trash. For his decision, Li Chang's son receives the special bonus of unbending spirit and approval from the owl piercing the dim light. However, since the divine essences are granting him a bonus, it had better be recognizing eyes or goddess blade and dagger, anticipating an interesting battle with the Haof clan. Li Chang starts by hiding his identity. For this purpose, Li Chang uses Ha's laughing mask as an obstacle from recognition. Wearing a laughing Ha mask, Li Chang's son pulls out daggers made of ice kite feathers. Though he doesn't aim to quickly massacre the clan, gathering the daggers from the ice kite feathers into a pile, he sends them off toward the cluster of people at the entrance to the cave. Naturally, no one expects them to be assassinated, especially with daggers. Therefore, the first dagger strikes the first member of the clan, and the next dagger hits the other man's head exactly on target. And so, one by one, the remaining members of the clan guarding the entrance to the cave fall under the effect of the daggers. Now they're immobilized, and Li Chang's son can finish them off without a problem, and in this, he will be assisted by his eternal companion in attorney matters, the dagger. Without a second thought, he chops up the ice sculptures, sending the prisoners to the other side of the world. Satisfied with his result, Li Chang's emerges victorious. However, Li Chang's thinks that it's not enough for trash like them, and thus they need to suffer more. Armed with a dagger, Li Changzang bleeds from his hand, and by activating the poisonous blood skill, Li Chang's touches his enemy in ice imprisonment with his hand. Finally, the poison that Li Changsung's body produces reaches the victim along with the ice kite feather daggers, intensifying the effect that achieves unbearable torment in those people who were touched by Li Changzang. Skillfully using the additional skill he had obtained, and you have to keep in mind that it's not just poison but ice poison that is enhanced with poison blood, which means that its effects are much stronger, leaving his enemies to go to the other side in agony. Li Chang's son clears the path to the cave, and the two deities are happy with what is happening. Finally, Li Changsung reaches the entrance to the dungeon and opens the gate. The first room Li Changsung enters is called Besla Grave. While in pitch darkness, Li Chang's discovers that his laughing Ha mask has a see-through function. That's the answer to why Uzi decided to lend it to Li Chang's. The answer to why the Frere is in front of the boss's room is so he can check the keys. Li Chang needs to keep that in mind. He announces the start of the mission: loot the tomb by defeating the guards and stealing all the treasures in the room where the tomb master rests. But Li Chang soon senses that someone is following him, thus confusing the deity of hunting time. Confident, Li Chang's returns to ignore deity Hunt's remark, but the stalker is still unwilling to show himself to Li Changzang. In that case, Li Changzang has no choice but to report him to the administrator at the first opportunity. However, this warning did not last long. From behind the turn shows the same rabbit that descended to the mission participants in the dungeon. It's time for Li Chang's to meet Harold, the dungeon administrator. Hunt Time is at a loss as to what Harold wants here, but the rabbit parries and admits that everyone already knows he's here, and this is true even if Hunt Time exhibits exasperation toward him. However, the Herald's meaningless conversation is interrupted by Li Ch's impatience. He guesses that the real reason the Herald is after Li Chang's is the report the rabbit is supposed to write. This statement catches the Herald by surprise, and he does not expect to hear that Li Chang's knows anything about the report. But Li Chang still wonders why the report is needed since the training has long since ended. However, the Herald explains that the report is needed to provide the gods with all the little things they want to know to give an estimate of how the newcomer knows it, and that should be reflected in the report. Because Li Changsun knows more than the ranchers, the Herald Rabbit begins typing for his report, while Li Chang's continues to wait for what the report will say. More specifically, Li Changsun is the one everyone is talking about, and he's too good and quite attentive to detail. Having already written half of the report on Li Changsun, the Herald suddenly wonders what happens if another administrator has writing privileges. Then what's left for the Rabbit Herald to do? The Rabbit hopes no one notices, and then the Herald comes up with a great idea because he can give the rights to the record to Li Chang's, to which the Herald gets an affirmative answer from Li Chang's. This pleases him immensely. However, not everything is so simple. If Li Chang's gets the recording rights from the Herald, then the latter in turn must do Li Changsun a favor. Thinking he'll get rid of Li Chang's quickly, the Rabbit parries the fact that he's only competent in security concerns, and with no answer from Li Changsun, the Herald begins to feel like he's getting into something. But Li Changsun assures the Herald that the favor won't be a big deal, and he voices it before he leaves the dungeon. However, the Herald once again says that the favor will not be done if it is beyond his power, but that doesn't bother Li Changsun one bit. Since that's the case, it's a done deal. Thus, Li Sang and the administrator Herald make a pact called the Mana PCT. Crazy Li Changsun even knows about Mana's contract, so in front of the Herald, he is not a rookie. If nothing else, he is a veteran. Leaving the Herald alone with his thoughts, Li Changsun continues on his chosen path. The concluded treaty makes the snake of the world enthralled, for at last, there's one who is much more cunning than the deity himself. Meanwhile, someone's been trying to find the key for some time now, but like his previous attempts, this one fails. Turning to Li J.S., the head of Hoff's raid division, this person wonders how long it will take him to do his job, otherwise, they will be punished again, and this one may be sacrificed. So, we need to take measures. So, Jin Dai Wan's intervention is required. Who, begging for mercy, is brought by force to the designated place. Yes, this time, like the previous times, Jin Dai Wan fails in his endeavors, and this is the same Jin Dai Wan who stole the hammer from his brother Oaji. This is the same man who is now begging for mercy, begging for more blood to finally make it all work, but instead takes a leg kick that lands right in the face. Apparently, this is not the first time Jin Dai Wan has been hit, and it makes him feel a sense of fear and adoration. Indeed, Jin Dai Wan was given everything he asked for by the people of the sacred fire offerings, but he was unable to fulfill what he was entrusted with. So why should Jin Dai Wan be kept alive if someone's life hangs in the balance, even considering the sacred fire was used otherwise? But is the fact that the sacred fire is being used in a new brazier something that should worry a certain someone? Realizing where this is going, Jin Dai Wan tries to tilt the situation in his favor by asking for another chance in blood, and blood is just what he needs to open the lock. After all, Jin Dai Wan had already opened 2 of the 3 stages of the castle, but the lack of blood deprived him of his power. This argument gives him another chance, but if Jin Dai Wan screws up again, it's not just him, his whole family will suffer. This someone, who can't stand the wait, wonders why there are no materials he needs yet, but then he is distracted by an alert that pops up in the system window. According to the data, another new player, Li Changsun, appears among the leading participants in the dungeon rankings. Meanwhile, the Rabbit Herald continues to type up its report on Li Chang, praising him. Its content is such that Li Chang is the very unique player that a large number of gods are interested in, including hunting time. In addition, Li Changsun's actions are fast enough that even the Herald can hardly keep up with him. After all, in less than 30 minutes, Li Changsun was able to strip each of the 2 sections while cutting the metal ball in half and also hitting arrows that move from all directions. It suggests that Li Changsun knows the location of all the traps. It is most likely that Li Changsun would be able to clear the CR 921 dungeon, considering that no one had managed to do so for 4 years, and the Herald knows this as well as anyone since he has been an administrator for a long time. Also, Li Changsun is talented, with developed senses and features, and the Herald is already in anticipation of the battle that will erupt for Li Changsun between the gods and the constellations. So to summarize, Li Changsun is one of those players who has outstanding ability, and these abilities are so outstanding that they were able to interest 12 constellations and 28 temples. Meanwhile, Li Chang removes another obstacle in front of him, blowing the stone wall to ashes. There's no doubt that Li Chang reminds the Hurl of someone, and noting this in his report, the Hurl thinks it will make a certain pair of gods tense up. For it is the light of the gods that we are talking about, the light that ridicules a great number of constellations and gods with its light. But as anyone and everyone knows, the light of the gods is fallen. The light of the gods was, in due time, brought before divine judgment, and it was attended by his worst enemy. The light of the gods saw and felt his presence. This worst enemy is none other than the ruler of the abyss. Everything about the abyss ruler angered the light gods, in particular one thing, namely, what right does the ruler of the abyss have to mock the light of the gods when he is in no favorable position at all? But it's just a memory while Li Changsung continues to successfully clear his path, and after removing another fence, Li Changsung finds himself in a corridor leading to a room. However, the air that fills the space has an unpleasant odor that also marks the deity of hunting time, and that smell is reminiscent of the smell of blood. There's definitely a reason for this. An owl piercing the dim light senses the source of evil. Indeed, at the end, in the room, Li Changsung discovers breathless, mutilated bodies. An owl, piercing the dim light, demands justice. It is likely that these unfortunates were victimized because of the key that must be made for the boss's room, and then Li Changsung hears voices coming from around the corner, telling people to hurry up. In fact, they are the leaders of those who must be sacrificed to obtain the blood used to produce the key. They need to speed up and find another person so that no one from the Hayoff clan is sacrificed. Besides, whining is very annoying. But then something happens that no one expected. Suddenly, ice jets from somewhere, covering and constricting the movement of the Hayoff clan members. In the midst of all this, the remaining clan member who is not trapped in the ice sees a masked man coming at him with a dagger in his hands. One by one, he sends the members of the Hoff clan to the other side of the world. No one has any idea who the masked man is or what he wants. In the dungeon, however, without wasting any time explaining, Li Chang strikes with a dagger that slices through his opponent's face, and then, with the dexterity of his dagger, delivers a decisive blow to the chest. How dare he attack the Hoff clan? But looking closely at Li Chang's face, something else catches my eye. That other thing is Li Chang's eyes, emitting a glow completely different from human eyes. The enemy, knowing that his outcome is near, tries to beg Li Chang for mercy. Clearly, he wants to stay alive, and if that's the case, the clan member should tell Li Chang everything he knows about Hef. The clan is said to number about 30 people. All these 30 people are preparing the ritual, but the most dangerous among them is Li Yun. This is what the clan representative knows, and now he's reminding Li Chang that he promised to keep him alive. But Li Chang pulls out a dagger from the sharp claw of a Bengal tiger as if to mock him and strikes, because Li Chang only asked if he wanted to live but didn't promise anything in return. After carrying out the massacre, Li Chang raises his level by delighting the snake of the world with his joke. In turn, the great demon chasing the abyss is also happy with what happened, and Li Chang starts the activation of the soul sucker. The soul from the defeated enemy leaves his body to go to a new owner. What's happening in front of the captives, who are terrified of what they're seeing? The hero is on the podium. He has successfully completed retribution, and Li Chang sees that he's making an impression on other people. The transition of Li Chang's soul into Li Chang's body is something no one expects to see, and Li Chang decides to leave the scene of the clash, leaving the captured people behind. Li Chang's movement, with the pink plume, and what those around him see leads them to be very impressed. They can't get a clear picture of Li Chang. It's more likely that what they're looking at is not a man but a ghost in human form. In the meantime, Li Chang himself is being hunted, and those who need to find him know that Li Chang is a famous pro player. Although there is a possibility that at this point Li Chang is not capable of anything, it could be a completely different person with the same name. Meanwhile, Li Chang is hot on the heels of his pursuers. As can be expected, there is a clash with a higher probability of defeat for members of the Hoff clan since, at this point, their leader is already freaking out from the long wait. Just as suddenly, a new dungeon ranking update starts happening. The dungeon rankings are updated with great frequency, and Li Chang moves from 11th position to 6th position. Suddenly, Li Chang's position moves to a row higher than Li Jie's, causing the latter to genuinely panic. Another update, and Li Jie is already at number 2. Everyone Li Jie expects to see is already gone. Suddenly, Li Jie is called out by someone asking for help, and it's not just anyone, it's S, the assistant manager of the clan. But S needs to pull himself together and come to his senses instead of asking Li Jie for help. This makes Li Jie incredibly angry and scared at the same time. However, it was already too late for the ghost to come after Song. Getting closer and closer to Li Jie, the impact in Song's body is struck by a beam of light, sending him to his buddies while simultaneously throwing Li Jie aside with a ricochet. As a result, Li Jie is badly burned, which is aggravated by corpse poisoning. This is also joined by acid poisoning, which requires urgent detoxification to increase stamina. If Li Jie doesn't take immediate action, his life will be numbered. But what happens is that Li Jie sees another burst of fire, the fear reflected in his eyes of what Li Yun expects from him. Meanwhile, through the flames, with a dagger in hand, Li Jie is approached by his executioner, Li Chang. He prepares to strike his opponent to finish the job he started, but what happens next is not what Li Chang had in mind. Li Jie blocks Li Chang's punch. Yes, Li Jie is still able to resist the poison even in such a bad state. Li Jie is still trying to threaten Li Chang, because the poison that Li Yun is afflicted with impairs his eyesight, which means he can't see properly. Li Jie probably relies only on his feelings, and he's also a good fighter. However, Li Jie's strength is running low, and he needs urgent detoxification. In turn, Li Jie's strength and endurance surprises Li Chang, who must be using some kind of doping, and it is also surprising that in such a civilized country, there is a place for sacrifices, and very dangerous. Here is clearly something wrong. This fact piques the interest of Li Changsun, who is now eager to uncover these secrets in addition to Yeezy. But enough time has passed for reinforcements to arrive from headquarters, and if that's the case, it's time to move on to the victims without delay. In parallel, the captured people are trying to find a way out of the dungeon. Eventually, they reach some place leading into the room, as long as it's the same place the masked guy was talking about. Just as long as they don't make the mistake of getting the route right. That's what Li Changsun said when he appeared before the prisoners as a ghost determined to save these poor people. Li Changsun turns around and heads toward them. He advises them to hide behind an open door in the alley and not to open it under any circumstances. This will be their hiding place, from which, under no circumstances, can they get out if, of course, the prisoners want to stay alive. These were words of encouragement to the captives, and confident that everything had been explained quite clearly, Li Changsun hopes the victims will do well. In the meantime, it's time to use extra points on strength and agility, improving their performance while on the case. Li Chang's notices that Li Jisuan is looking for an antidote, and doesn't hesitate to provide it. In turn, Li Jisuan enjoys this generosity from Li Changsun, but in reality, it turns out the antidote bottle is completely empty. Is Li Jisuan stupid enough to fall for Li Changsun's trick? This kind of bullying from Li Changsun pisses Li Jisuan off, and Li Changsun strikes another blow to Li Jisuan, the punch reaching its target and damaging Li Jisuan. However, the confrontation continues. Li Changsun makes an outburst towards his opponent. This time, he throws a punch that turns the tide of the confrontation. This brings a sense of pleasure to the deity of hunting time, and the snake deity of the world praises Li Changsun for his cunning and playfulness. Li Changsun, continuing to parry with his dagger, proves his ordinary dagger technique to the highest level. Yes, Li Changsun is very good at wielding his weapon in unity with it, which means the next strike will be decisive for the enemy's weapon as well. With an effort, Li Changsun shreds the weapon of Li Jiang, who thinks it's impossible. But without wasting any time, Li Changsun switches to his opponent, and with the deftness of his dagger, he is spearing Li Jiang. The last seconds of Li Jisuan's life are coming. His existence in this world is numbered. This time, like all the previous times, Li Changsun comes out the winner. It's very strange to hear Li Jiang ask Li Changsun about his targeting of Li Changsun, but it's only logical that sooner or later there will be retribution. Li Changsun begins to activate the soul-sucking process, thereby activating the flames of purgatory and increasing his stamina by 6%. And all-piercing the dim light marvels at how righteous Li Changsun is, which makes her laugh. For this, Li Changsun receives from her the gift of inner calm, making him unshakable in the face of chaos and proud of his courage and wisdom. But even with all these compliments, it's hard for Li Changsun to imagine himself as an apostle. It's ridiculous that Li Changsun would ever be characterized by his indomitable spirit and inner calm. Li Changsun is usually associated with hard-heartedness and viciousness. After all, it's not for nothing that he was nicknamed the god of evil in his past life. Even for all his virtues, no one takes into account that the god of war is pretty sloppy. Meanwhile, the deity of hunting time is doing its best to overwhelm the gifts of the owl piercing the dim light. A system upgrade is underway. Finally, Li Changsun starts to approach the boss's room, but to open it requires a hidden key. Li Changsun takes a bone spear carved from the rib of a Bengal IX, but Li Changsun takes the spear for the sole purpose of throwing it to the side, just where the recruited man who stole the hammer from his brother is hiding. The bone spear carved from the rib of a Bengal IX successfully achieves its goal of striking the thief, naturally, given that the thief is scurrying around like a rat and carrying a hammer. What's interesting is that a hammer made of meteorite obeys no one but its owner. But Lee Chang-sung is interested in the material used to make the unknown hammer. But first, Lee Chang-sung must try to open the boss door that the Hoff clan has been unable to open for years. Of course, if Lee Chang-sung had Yeezy by his side, it would make the job easier, but he has to use a simpler method. Lee Chang-sung doesn't hesitate to turn to the rabbit herald who follows him around. This call takes the herald administrator by surprise. He absolutely doesn't understand the purpose of Lee Chang-sung calling him at a time like this. But it's time to fulfill the terms of the contract, and the favor the herald must perform is to open the door. However, the herald begins to twist to avoid the fulfillment of the contract, justifying it by the fact that the administrator does not interfere in the affairs of the dungeon. But it's not really what the rabbit came up with to get out of it, and Lee Chang-sung knows that the herald can make exceptions to any rule. The rabbit doesn't get away. Lee Chang-sung once again reminds us that the report has a positive effect, and the herald, assessing all the risks, proceeds to fulfill his part of the agreement for which the deities mock the rabbit's situation. It worked. The receptionist opens the stone door leading to the boss's room. Le Chan has finally succeeded in opening the door that the Hoff clan members couldn't open for a long time. However, from the word of the herald administrator, he should hurry up. These words made Le Chang-sung stiffen and think. Still, he didn't linger and followed inside, leaving the rabbit herald behind. However, this fact apparently amused the herald administrator a great deal. In the meantime, Lee Chang-sung gets into the boss's room, where he's been striving so hard to get to, but what he sees in front of him is probably not what he expects. Staring at him is a multi-eyed disembodied creature emitting a pink glow. In particular, you have to give credit to the eye that watches the guest so intently, and this is not for nothing because the eye has a hypnotizing effect, and the one who looks into it will be under the influence of a curse. In addition, the boss is trying not only to subdue his mind but also his body, and to avoid this, you need to break the gold box on the altar. But one must try to avoid hypnosis to prevent giving the body to the dungeon master. At this time, the dungeon master accuses Li Chang of disturbing his peace and insists that he must give up his flesh to do so. Outside the door of the room, the herald is bursting out laughing. Of course, he knows what's going on in there. He had no idea that completing the mission in the boss room would be so easy. You just need to protect your mind from the influence of the dead dungeon master, as there is nothing but your thoughts. However, if you remember what the herald has seen before, the boss is not so simple. It's not just a dead tomb master, it's the monstrous beast, which means that Lee Chang-sung, as an ordinary rookie, is unlikely to pass this test. And what right does Lee Chang-sung have to do that to the herald, the dungeon administrator? Because of that, Lee Chang-sung deserves one, and it's time to say goodbye to him forever. But at this time, Lee Chang-sung begins to activate his indomitable spirit and inner calm that protects his mind. That's exactly what the herald bunny, who decided he'll never see Lee Chang-sung again. To his surprise, the dungeon ranking is updated, showing the final result, and in it, Lee Chang-sung is in the lead. But that can't be possible at all. It's impossible. At least, the herald rabbit was quite sure of it. And so, according to the results, awards will be given, and now begins the countdown to close the dungeon. Yes, it turns out it's all true, and the herald rabbit is not wrong now or then. Of course, it was the keeper of the runes, just as the herald had assumed, and it was true. Meanwhile, Lee Chang-sung is standing on the pedestal holding a key, but the countdown ends, and the mission comes to a close. The dungeon begins to close, and thanks to all participants for a job well done. At this time, somewhere else in another part of the city and under different circumstances, specifically in Cobbler's Alley in Sudan, someone is handing someone something, and that someone is the blind blacksmith who gets his hands on a hammer from Lee Chang-sung. It is Lee Chang-sung who is the new boss of this hammer. But if the hammer is in the blacksmith's hands, then we must get to work. However, the job may take more than a month to complete, as the blacksmith hasn't held a hammer in his hands for a long time. Plus, the roast needs to be taken care of, but such a deadline does not suit Lee Chang-sung at all, and he reduces the required time to a week. However, this is very disturbing to the blacksmith as the work is very large. Just one whip takes more than 2 weeks to complete. Well, in that case, Lee Chang-sung is willing to pay 3 times as much if the blacksmith makes the whip and spear in a month. If there's no objection, then it's an agreement. But Lee Chang-sung's attention is drawn to a rusty sword. If it's for sale, then Lee Chang-sung might buy it. However, the blacksmith is strongly against it, as this item has been passed down in his family from generation to generation and has no price. But then the blacksmith's account drops 100 million won, probably enough for a sword that is used as a poker. Yet there's probably something wrong with Lee Chang-sung, that's on the blacksmith's mind, to which he receives an affirmative confirmation from his four-legged friend. Yes, Smith and dog understand and complement each other perfectly. But it's business as usual, and it's time to get to work. Let there be heat in the fryer, as work will be boiling here. There is no need to go back to the past, and even though the blacksmith doesn't quite know what's going on, he needs to do a good job for Lee Chang-sung. Meanwhile, leaving the blacksmith, Lee Chang-sung is tasked with finding Oyezi, who disappeared after completing the divine goat artifact. So, Oyezi is a man, not a god, like Lee Chang-sung thinks. Yes, his words are confirmed by Thanos. Oyezi is a man of rather advanced age, and if that's the case and the facts are in, then what should Lee Chang-sung do? Thanos explains that Oyezi is a man's name passed on to his successors? Capricorn didn't know that, and after receiving the artifact, killed him. The reason why the Ozi family is weakened is because of Lee Chang-sung. Because of him, the family lost its many secret skills. The same goes for whoever bears the legacy of the Oyei family. He's the one who creates the most valuable weapon in the world, and Lee Chang-sung will be responsible for the prosperity of the Oyezi family. But what will Lee Chang-sung have of Pedro's key that he got in the dungeon? And assuming that BA's tomb is a dungeon, in that case, why exactly is Pedro's key a great treasure? These musings should be left for later. I must hurry home since Lee Chang-su's mom is probably worried. Somewhere in another part of town, someone is looking for the guy who closed the dungeon. After receiving a negative answer from his subordinates, he starts to lose his temper. It's someone named Go Sunwon, the head of Hoff's raid division, who found out that Pedro's key was stolen. If the White Tiger clan, as the real owners of the gate of Banga Mountain, finds out about it, it will be the end of everyone. After all, Hoff had made a secret agreement with the White Tiger clan to make human sacrifices to obtain Pedro's key, which means we need to saddle up the iron horses and head straight for Mount Banga. It's mind-boggling because not only is the dungeon locked, but the key was stolen. If the White Tiger clan finds out about it, everyone's heads will be flying, including Go Sunwon's. But if Seo Jungkwon finds out about this, then Go Sunwon's family will also be affected, so we have to find the thief first. Meanwhile, Seo Jungkwon is at Lee Chang-sung's apartment, and receives some news from his man. Seo Jungkwon is furious at the news, making him mad. If nothing else, the news had a dynamite effect on him. He can no longer hold his temper. The anger of a raging tiger begins to come out of him, and it's in front of Lee Chang-sung's mom. However, a representative of the association sees this action and starts calling Seo Jungkwon. It's not an acceptable expression of emotion in front of not just a woman, but Lee Chang-sung's mom as well. So does the other clan member, who is shocked at what Seo Jungkwon is doing. The benefit of these shouts and the woman's frightened face begins to bring Seo Jungkwon to his senses. He pulls himself together and begins to dispel the spirit of the tiger that was caused by his sudden anger. Seo Jungkwon doesn't have the right to do that, especially in front of ordinary people, Lee Chang-sung's mom. Seo Jungkwon couldn't have been thinking of Lee Chang-sung's mom at that moment. After all, she is witnessing this emotional explosion of someone who came to her house with the purpose of recruiting her son, and she doesn't like it very much, to say the least. It's starting to piss her off. Seo Jungkwon is in a hurry to leave the house where Lee Chang-sung is supposed to return, but the representative of the association, seeing the condition of the woman, is interested in her condition. However, he receives in response that everything is fine and there is nothing to worry about, since Lee Chang-sung's mom is aware that those who have awakened live in a different dimension than the civilians. After hearing her words, the association representative is once again convinced that what she knows about Lee Chang-sung is true. And as much as mom wants Lee Chang-sung to be untouched, it's probably just a dream. In that case, they have nothing more to talk about, and she asks the uninvited guests to leave. It's all because of the stupid prank of Seo Jungkwon, the leader of the White Tiger clan. But can the new arrivals just leave without even looking at the newcomer? Then the representative of the other clan recalls the words of his niece, asking him to bring Lee Chang-sung to her. If Miss Cha and Mr. Jin plan to stay to wait for Lee Chang-sung, they can have coffee. With no particular modesty, Mr. Jin orders a hot caramel macchiato, for which Miss Cha immediately gives him a sharp kick in the shins, justifying it by saying that they still have work to do. So the meeting with Lee Chang-sung will be rescheduled for another time, but Mr. Jin doesn't seem to get Miss Cha's hint, for which he gets another punch. Since that's the case, the company meeting has been rescheduled. However, Mr. Jin and Miss Cha need to be very careful when they return, which means Mr. Jin can't fall behind his boss by following her around. But then something catches Mr. Jin's attention. Looking at Miss Cha, he becomes alarmed by the expression on his boss's face, as it is too serious. Then Mr. Jin sees a text message come through on his phone. According to the information received, people have been found in the Changnanga area, where Mount Banga is being sacrificed. Help is needed. That's something Mr. Jin doesn't expect to see on his phone, but he has to hurry to keep up with his boss, as he really doesn't want to stay in this place. Meanwhile, on the way to his house, Lee Chang-sung looks at the rusty sword he brought with him with interest. Answering the question of the deity of hunting time, he is sure that what is used as a poker in the mythical brazier is hiding something about himself, and it's barbaric to use such. Such a divine artifact called the Yuchang sword, if used properly, will play a good role. This sword, known as the Yuchang sword, is one of the 9 blades that the first Ui forged, but without fulfilling the requirements, its abilities are hidden. These swords are of great value. For example, for the sword of Jinlin in Arcadia, a bloodbath broke out. Back then, 2 empires and 6 kingdoms were wiped out, and now Yu Chang's sword was being used as a poker. It is known that in the beginning, the sword of Yu Chang was wielded by Assassini. Because he spilled a lot of blood, it is considered the sword of evil. However, not much is known about its form. Also, legend has it that Ui was named the divine artisan because he could not tolerate blood. However, whether the first Ui or his successor was the original user, all the patterns on the sword have been erased, and it is now just a myth. Then, Lee Chang-sun begins to wonder about a question that clearly interests him, so he decides to turn to the system window to satisfy his interest, which can't help but please the divine entities. In fact, if Lee Chang-sun gets the chance, he'll use it to collect all 9 famous swords. In his musings, Li Chang pulls out a bone spear from the rib of a Bengal ibex. He starts to get the feeling that there is someone else beside Li Chang's, and most likely this time, as in the past, Li Chang's premonition will not fail. So he decides to speak first and launches his attack by throwing a bone spear made from the rib of a Bengal ibex. However, the spear stabs into a tree without hitting the target, but just at the spot where Li Chang's opponent's head was. Even though the previously known clan representative was skillfully hiding, Li Chang's managed to suddenly attack him. Meanwhile, Li Chang's continues to pound away at his opponent. Once again, Li Chang's eyes lit up with a light that distinguished him from an ordinary person. Of course, this can't go unnoticed by the clan representative. He sees Li Chang's eyes light up with an unearthly glow while Li Chang's is already obsessed with the clash and is preparing to strike. Li Chang's dagger is already cleaving the air in close proximity to the clan representative, and suddenly he meets resistance. Li Chang's opponent is the one who deflects the blow with his dagger. The clan representative realizes he's not the newcomer everyone thinks he is. For a newcomer, there is no such power of strike and skill with which Li Chang's holds his dagger. But the clash continues, where the clan representative only manages to fend off Li Chang's blows. Li Chang's has his own type of attack, quite rough and unlike others. Li Chang's seems to be acting coherently, without any unnecessary movements. It's likely that Li Chang's has experience in real confrontations, and his blade is only designed to take a life. That's not typical of a novice. It's as if Li Chang's is a first-generation player who has gone through every imaginable and unthinkable challenge. After all, the clan representative's goal was only to test Li Chang's, but he has to be extremely careful not to make a single mistake because he doesn't think the niece of the clan representative will thank him for it. But in order not to disgrace himself, he must resist Li Chang's, and for this purpose, as many as 10,000 notes were bent into arrows. It seems that Li Chang's is ready for this turn of confrontation, and with renewed vigor, he begins to lash out at the clan representative, causing the opponent's blade to smash into the ground, leaving him no choice but to admit defeat. No longer daring to clash with Li Chang's, he raises his hands in a gesture of retreat. This confuses Li Chang's, who doesn't understand what the clan representative is after. However, the answer doesn't take long to come. As it turns out, Li Chang's was being tested to evaluate his skills. The information received further stumped Li Chang's. In turn, Li Chang's opponent apologizes for getting carried away with the game and causing misunderstanding with his actions. The deity of hunting time is furious at this treatment and demands that the offender be punished, but first, Li Chang's needs to find out his name. But such informal treatment pisses off the clan representative, while the latter addresses Li Chang's with respect. Not wanting to hide the unknown any longer, Li Chang's holds out his business card. It's written in black and white that he's the head of the 5-star Swords HR department, Wu Yungun. The main reason Wu Yungun was looking for Li Chang's was to invite him into his clan. If you recall, their patron is the god Apin, the god of wealth who guards warehouses and household assets. However, such a ridiculous encounter doesn't make Li Chang's happy, but more importantly, how does Wu Yungun know him? However, Wu Yungun's clan isn't the only one that wants to win Li Changsun over to their side. Apparently, Li Changsun shouldn't underestimate the clans just because they're players. However, Wu Yungun doesn't have much time, and he's already done too much, so he needs to reschedule the meeting. Li Changsun can contact Wu Yungun if necessary. Hunting Time is not happy with this outcome. Therefore, between the deities of Hunting Time and the snake that coils around the world, there is an altercation, and someone is going to get hurt today. But Li Changsun doesn't pay any attention to them, and tries to remember where he could see. Wu Yunnan, only one thought that flashed by, was able to distract Li Chang's song from his musings. If Wu Yungun is prowling around here, it's likely that they came to his house for sure. Mom will be worried, and soon after coming home, Li Changsun catches his mom on her feet. But without asking too many questions, she invites him to the table. However, realizing that she interrupted her son, Mom wants to know what Li Changsun had to say. Li Changsun decides it's time to tell Mom the secret he has an obligation to share with her, and tell her what's really going on. Meanwhile, somewhere in another dimension, other things are happening. We're talking about a man who, despite his age, is already beginning to show his intentions. However, these words spoken by an elderly person do not suit his interlocutor at all. Nevertheless, the continuing elderly man, continuing his speech, should put a stop to it if he doesn't want to get hurt. However, the conversation won't be over. First, you need to hone your punches. At the same time, but in a different place, Li Chang'an wakes up in his apartment bed with his four-legged friend, and just at that moment, he receives a notification on his phone that Li Chang is scheduled to be interviewed by the White Tiger clan today. But it's been a month since Li Changsun received a job notice from the White Tiger clan. However, it's time to take action. Near the building where the White Tiger clan was located, there were a large number of people waiting for their turn. It is not just that. Here is the reception of newcomers to the ranks of the White Tiger clan, as evidenced by the numerous announcements. Each of the applicants tries to show off the skills they can boast of, but the main criterion is the level of magical power, which is measured by a device specialized in this. To measure the level, you have to put your hand on the instrument. That's what Li Changsun, who is a newcomer, does. But what happens next leaves everyone present confused. As soon as Li Changsun touched the device, it immediately exploded, causing thick smoke. Since Li Changsun's magic power level can't be measured, the device simply malfunctioned. Therefore, a gauge that is a higher level than the previous one is required, and it once again makes everyone present shudder with the shock they received. Also among those interested in Li Chang's identity is a certain person, a person whose face is completely hidden by a mask except for one eye. At this time, another device is brought in, and Li Chun, whose number is 131, is asked to take the strength test again. As soon as the tester says his name, among the crowd runs that many people know the name, or at least have heard of it. But some people even recognize him under a different name, which can't be Li Changsun, a.k.a. Tyrant. He wore these clothes on purpose to be less conspicuous. Yeah, it's probably that tyrant who quit Cyberport and drank himself to death. At least that's what they say. In general, Tyrant looks like a player, not a real man. What are his goals in coming to this election since he resigned? However, the device that determines magical power is unable to determine Li Changsun's magic power, and this time the result is startling to those present, including the man with one eye watching Li Changsun. Meanwhile, the device shows Li Changsun's rank, which can't be 25, and his magic power still can't be determined. This causes confusion for the man leading the measurement of magical power, but this time he doesn't know what to do. He needs the intervention of the head of the department, who is in his office reading the news about the Hoff clan, and he doesn't like what he sees on the tablet at all. Since the Hoff clan was exposed, the head of the raid department, Gung Wonen, was sent to the grave, and this incident of the sacrifice of 21 persons for 7 years, so long concealed, demands an explanation from the association without fail. According to Cha Yuyang, a member of the association, the Hoff clan will face punishment. Also, the White Tiger clan begins investigating the crimes of the Hoff clan, which can also be viewed, which means we can avoid the White Tiger problems with the Hoff cult. There are even those who are grateful to the man in the mask of Hao, but no one knows who is hiding under it. It's pretty obvious that this character is the one who stole Peter's key, which means the White Tiger clan needs to find him no matter what. Just then, a man standing at the rookie reception appears, disturbing the head of the department with a report of a super rookie. However, his appearance has little effect on the head of the White Tiger clan, who is immersed in his own thoughts regarding Hoff. But it's still worth wondering what the purpose of a super rookie showing up at the White Tiger clan selection is, and that super rookie is Li Changsun. The head of the White Tiger division, along with Black Shamire and the Steel Witch, are after Lee Changsun, who came out of Jamil's gate and is the one the clan head wanted to recruit. However, he didn't complete his plan because he was distracted at the time by the incident with the Hoff clan. What was his surprise to find out that Lee Changsun had personally come to them and was also showing maximum results, so they need to intercept Lee Changsun first before the other organizations get ahead of them. But still, Lee Changsun needs to prove himself by passing the Zone C exams immediately. The news of Li Chang's revival under the nickname Tyrant spread all over the public. It is Li Chang's who is the rising star of the first SSS rank that Korea has met in the past 15 years. But still, not everyone believes that the Tyrant stands before them. Despite the facial expression unique to him, he is just incredibly lucky, besides being born with a silver spoon in his mouth, so his rank is awakened. However, not everyone likes it, as someone comes to the selection for the first time, and now they will be compared. But such remarks are to the liking of deity Huntime, as she is proud to be the first to choose Lee Changsun. Suddenly, two strangers in robes appear among the spectators present on the platform. They cannot escape Lee Changsun's eyes, attracting his attention. Then a golden glow appears, revealing the essence of those arriving at the examination ring. This deity is the deity Tiger, trapped in a labor trap, who is surprised to see Lee Changsun and watches him with interest. It's probably because he's thinking about Lee Changsun according to the snake-wrapped world. However, there are only seconds left before the exam test begins, and Lee Changsun needs to do a monster hunting task, giving a choice of monsters to the test subject. After hearing what Lee Chang's has to offer, he chooses the strongest monster, Drake. Of course, this choice already causes surprise and fear among those who came to the selection, but the choice is made, and the monster appears in the arena before Lee Changsun. The tyrant appears in the form of a huge black animal with horns. In addition, the monster has no time to appear and is preparing to make attacks on his opponent. However, despite the monster's impressive size, Lee Chang remains undeterred. In turn, the trapped tiger pursues his goal of evaluating Lee Changsun. Naturally, the others arriving for the trial are impressed by the monster, and the deity tiger, trapped in the difficulty of continuing to look at Lee Changsun, is in doubt from where he stands and decides that Lee Changsun will probably go to the other side. However, that's not the case at all, because Lee Changsun thinks more specifically. He recalls how he appeared bound in divine judgment, and at that moment, his gaze slid toward his taunter, who is grinning and enjoying the spectacle. It's none other than Hugh. How dare he treat Lee Changsun like that? Who is he to mock Lee Changsun, who is in such a disadvantaged position? Since that's the case, Lee Chang will do anything to remove that insolent smirk from his rival's face. Then it's time to act to show what Lee Changsun is really worth, and the confrontation begins as the monster makes a dash toward his opponent, Lee Changsun. However, Lee Changsun is still in a calm state of mind as he resorts to his tube. He tosses it up to get the contents. Earlier, the tube did not appear to Lee Changsun by accident. It was brought by someone. It's worth noting that this someone looks pretty tired, which doesn't escape Lee Changsun's gaze. That someone is a blind blacksmith, and his condition is partly Lee Changsun's fault. He brought a tube to Lee Changsun with some item the tyrant had asked for, but Lee Changsun will only be able to verify the quality when he looks at it himself. Unscrewing the lid of the tube, Lee Changsun sees the bracelet and the handles of the combat equipment. After trying on the bracelet and taking out the battle equipment, Lee Changsun enthralls the deities, who rarely ever encounter such splendor. The tyrant is faced with a nameless double-edged spear that has an attachment effect, meaning that its properties are lost to the other owner. When Lee Changsun picks it up, he shows off his excellent spear skills, much to the delight of the deity of hunting time. Even more so, the deity of hunting time doesn't even believe that such a thing can be created by a person with vision loss. In turn, the blind master has a lot of thoughts about the spear wielding that Lee Changsun shows, but Lee Changsun continues to build up his hand by customizing his fighting equipment. Doesn't this mean that Lee Changsun, aka the boss, was once a spearman? So, while in the arena, Lee Changsun tosses the tube with its contents, and everyone here is terrified of what's happening in the exam arena. At that very time, a giant monster makes a dash to where Lee Changsun is, but the spear hits the monster, striking its eyes. Of course, this kind of thing amazes those present, and they can't believe their eyes as Lee Changsun does it. The same feeling arises from the deity tiger, trapped in difficulties, because according to park leader, Lee Changsun's words, he has amazing agility, which is impossible even for a level 25. So, if Lee Changsun had only a bow, he would have been a top performer in terms of accuracy. That means Leader Park will make every effort to lure Lee Changsun to his side. Meanwhile, Lee Chang uses his spear to turn to the bracelet, which is a whip. The name of this whip is the nameless cat of nine tails, which also refers to the type of tether. It was commissioned by Gaia Ja's successor. It turns out that using not only the spear but also the whip, Li Changsun is preparing to surprise. This time, Li Changsun frees the spear by pulling it out of the monster's eye socket. The nameless cat of nine tails takes up the whip, which he swings at the monster Drake, immobilizing him while holding the whip firmly in his hand. Li Changsun prepares to strike next. This time, the spear, previously pulled from Drake's body, comes into play. Li Changsun leaps and decides to strike the monster, thereby getting behind the monster and aiming the spear at its head. Finally, the spear reaches its intended target and wounds Drake. As a result, Drake gets hit from where he doesn't expect, and it starts to make him furious. Meanwhile, Li Changsun once again makes a leap to deliver another spear strike, being under the impression that the participants cannot understand where Li Chang has his combat equipment because what he does is simply impossible. The speed at which Li Chang acts at level 25, considering that all effects are only gold without exception, is remarkable. In general, the people are facing a real person, or they are a monster themselves, and at this very moment, Li Changsun activates the poisonous blood skill, thereby spreading a paralyzing poison through Drake's body, poisoning him. Now, not only is the monster paralyzed, but there's a good chance Drake won't survive from the heavy bleeding. To avoid continuing to torment the monster and to end the case, Li Changsun strikes the decisive blow. Now, Drake is finally defeated. Li Changsun was able to defeat him, thereby increasing the beginner's spear handling skill level and simultaneously accepting congratulations from the deity of hunting time, increasing his strength by 5 points. Certainly, this performance makes Tiger, trapped in hardship, deeply respectful and eager to own the new Fong. Well, Leader Park starts to get even more eager to get Li Changsun, so he instructs him to bring him to him. However, at that moment, something begins to catch the attention of Leader Park. It's likely that he's guessing what's going on, and he will be disappointed if his thoughts are confirmed. The same thing is happening to Li Changsun. Something is making him tense up. He begins to anticipate what will happen next, which keeps him focused. Just at that moment, a flash of fiery light appears in front of him. Bearing his sword, the leader of the White Tiger clan appears before Li Changsun. However, Li Chang manages to block the tiger's danger by withstanding its aura. But this performance is disliked by Li Changsun, who recalls the ruler of the abyss, and the leader of the White Tiger seems amused by this comparison. He invites Li Changsun to join his clan, promising to make him a first-class warrior. To confirm his intentions about his plans for Li Changsun, the clan leader decides to show it all in action. Now Li Changsun has a choice. If he responds to the clan leader's lunge, he will attract the attention of the abyss ruler, but it can be delayed. In the midst of Li Changsun's clash with the leader of the White Tiger clan, someone starts to yell at them. A flash of red rays of light is shown amidst everything. It's Leader Park who decides to intervene in the action taking place, naturally drawing the eye of the White Tiger clan leader with his appearance. In turn, Leader Park is extremely indignant that the leader of the White Tiger clan does not want to consider the opinion of those who are senior in rank, especially if they want to take what rightfully belongs to Park leader Li Changsun. The squabble between the two leaders is starting to pique the interest of the public, who don't understand what's going on at all. Then, two more leaders of the fourth squad, Dinis Eugene and the leader of the third squad, Homo Thiem Kangs Wu, show up just in the midst of the showdown. They also want to lay claim to Li Changsun, which makes him resentful since Li Changsun knows that not all leaders are equal. It is likely that there will soon be a scuffle among the leaders in the exam arena because of Li Changsun. In fact, every clan leader is claiming Li Changsun as his own, trying to win him over to their side. The situation starts to go over the edge as threats and insults come into play. However, Li Changsun decides that those who received whose patronage must be eliminated. Just at that moment, in the midst of the quarrel between the leaders, there is a flash of light indicating the appearance of someone else. The resulting outbreak is such a force that the leaders can barely stand on their feet, calming their fervor a bit, including those who are fighting so hard for their rights to Li Changsun. It's clear that everyone is shocked to see who's in front of them. This is the one who hides his face and starts approaching members of his clans. In the end, it becomes clear that in front of those present is Osi Wan, the executive director of the White Tiger clan. Of course, Li Changsun recognizes the person in front of him as the individual who appeared in the examination arena. This person is not only the executive director of the White Tiger clan but also the deputy director. Li Changsun's nose bleeds when he appears, which surprises the deity of hunting time because of his great strength, but Li Changsun realizes that all these effects are due to the fact that Osi Wan is a high-ranking man, and that says it all. Then, Osi Wan begins to condemn those who organize such a shameful spectacle, especially Sango, who, as the eldest, should reconcile everyone. When Sango hears this, he gets excited because Osi Wan is kind of on his side. And it's funny to see the park leader's reaction, so we should take this chance and send everyone to take Le Changzan to the White Tiger clan. However, Oshwan decides to look at the child who caused the altercation differently and takes him away, so as not to offend anyone, thereby cleverly beating everyone and leaving them with nothing. Meanwhile, in Executive Director Wan's office, Li Changshan is given new clothes because the old ones are stained with blood. Looking at Le Changsong's naked body, a TI trapped in a trap of hardship drools while hunting. Time tells everyone to turn away. Oshwan notes the same thing while looking at Li Cheng's body, which indicates that it's designed for battle after passing many tests. The question of what kind of life Le Changzan had is raised because Oshwan had never seen anything like it when he looked at him. Still, it's worth getting straight to the point about Li Changzan, knowing that the patron god of the White Tiger is very interested in Le Changsong, then it is better to ask directly about what he is seeking. It's safe to assume that the young man's goal is to save money. However, this goal is not at all interesting to Le Chang's since he is already very rich. His main desire is that Le Chang's wants to become a member of the strategy department, and Le Chang's knows that Oshwan has direct control over this department. Maybe he wants to find a connection with the authorities, but this news catches Osahan by surprise. Apparently, he didn't expect to hear such a response. To be more specific, the news he received didn't just amuse Owan, it made him laugh out loud. Or to be more accurate, he's just laughing his ass off at what he just heard. It's starting to annoy Le Chang's, who's already getting teary-eyed from Osahan's laughter. However, Osahan realizes what Li Chang's is up to and notes that ambition like Le Chang SS is worthy of the White Tiger clan. But Le Changshong should know that the strategy department is not only the head but also the backbone of the White Tiger clan, and in order to become a member, Le Chang's son has to show everything he can do. Osahan is very curious about how he's going to do it, and without a second thought, Li Chang's son proposes to set a new record on a black and red mountain range. The hero is aware that all rookie trainees are tested on the voice ridge, but he wants to set a new record, more specifically jumping over the training, where he could prove himself to go straight to the dungeon rankings. What Oshwan said earlier is immediately confirmed by Li Chang's. In that case, since Li Changxiong is so confident, it's likely that he's strong enough to question it. But it doesn't seem to be an affirmative answer that Oshwan is voicing, and it makes Li Shengen think because it's possible that Oshwan is waiting for something else. Of course, Oshwan wants to hear something else, and Li Chang's gets a hunch. Perhaps Li Changzan can still offer to clean up the dungeon, and as he suggests, Oshwan is happy with the offer, even though the dungeon is not a good place for training. So, there's something in the Black-Red Ridge that will help put pressure on Owan. So, Li Chang's has to clean it up himself without attracting attention. In that case, having accepted Le Changxiong's terms, Osahan is now willing to dialogue with him. But that's not all because Le Chang still intends to make a request to Osahan, and the request is to be able to use the library that belongs to the White Tiger clan. This is also admired by Osahan, who appreciates the pursuit of knowledge, especially in young people. The clan library is considered the best in the world, so since that's the case, Li Changsong can use it before entering the dungeon raid. Meanwhile, all the headlines are abuzz with news of the resurrected Tran's victories and polls of those who know him personally, and one of the people who's ever had contact with him is M. Plume, whom he rescued from a jam. Also not left out is Lieutenant Park Hyas, who gave him a thumbs up when talking to him and told Li Chang's. Cool. Meanwhile, there's a hysterical shriek in Executive Director Yuan's office. This is Sango crying for Owan to give him Le Chang's son, promising to give him an expressway instead of a life. However, Yuan reminds Sango of the chain of command he must adhere to in order not to fall off the meta leader of the squad. But Sango still doesn't understand why Owan keeps refusing his request, and the reason is that Li Chang's is included in the strategic squad, and now it's up to him to think about who he'll be paired with for the mission. Then, Sango starts to realize what Oshwan is up to but still wonders where Le Chang's son is. Anticipating that this question would come from Sango, Owan made sure to send the hero to a place Sango doesn't like. A few days later, Li Changsung takes on a training session arranged by the White Tiger clan, and once in the dungeon, the Black-Red Mountain range realizes that he has to mop up the entire enormous mountain before him. At that moment, however, his attention is drawn to what is beginning to happen on the mountain. The top of the highest peak of the mountain splits open, and a crimson stream of light spews out. If that's what Li Changsong is thinking when he's watching the eruption, meanwhile, hidden in the bushes is someone who keeps watching Li Changsung, but the bright crimson light continues to eject from the top of the mountain with even more force. Eventually, the ejection ends with the appearance of a bright glow in the sky, and this emergence is so strong that it picks up a wind that tears and swirls the leaves and also sways with force the branches of trees and shrubs, staining them crimson. But is what Li Changsung sees true? Is his theory correct? Some entity flies out of the mountain, having created such a representation, which is Li Changsung's target because it is the cause of the loss of the ridge's original appearance, and must be destroyed. After all, according to the tales, the black-red mountain range used to be huge, and the color matched the name. Li Changsung has a hunch that he's encountered this place in Arcadia before. But then, Li Changsung starts to notice something that distracts him from his thoughts. Turning around, he sees that there is none, and his pursuer is hiding behind the trees. It's weak wind following Li Changsung, and he's angry at being exposed. Li Changsung realizes that he was being watched while he was in the library. I wonder what Executive Director Oh Shun is trying to accomplish with this. Earlier, a few days ago, in the library building belonging to the White Tiger clan, standing in it, Li Changsung realizes that the library is of impressive size, just as Dungeon Master Thanos said. And isn't Hugh the cause of all the controversy that happens in heaven? Since this is the case, the question arises as to what features his supporters, who have received the blessing of Hugh, will be endowed with. It is more likely that his supporters, as well as their patron, will sow discord everywhere, but Thanos adds that it's the least they can do. Extortion and exploitation, with displaying the corpses of their enemies as trophies, are normal for them. To understand what they represent, Li Changsung needs to consult the White Tiger Library, and Thanos can help by giving a list of useful texts. However, Li Changsung refuses the offer, convinced he can find them himself, but Thanos keeps insisting on his help, promising not to disappoint him. Having received consent, Thanatos talks about the Sagittarius zodiac movement technique, which is called the Rook of Sagittarius. These are the 6 martial techniques that represent his sacred powers. Seeing Li Changsung's surprise, Thanos begins to list them. However, Li Changsung doubts that Hugh has any of them because there was no war between them, and it may be false information. But Thanos pulls him back and suggests he rack his brain to figure out how Thanos knows this. It didn't take long for Li Changsung to realize that Thanos could only tell fallen stars, which means being in the library of the White Tiger clan. Li Changsung just needs to find the offensive steps. As we know, it was the offensive steps that transformed Sagittarius from an ancient distant star called God into a zodiac sign. If Li Changsung succeeds in obtaining the steps, there's no stopping him when his divinity awakens again. But there's one thing. Meanwhile, the tiger deity, who is trapped in hardship, continues to watch Li Changsung's every move. Who, once in the library, has the right to use it for 24 hours, except for the first and second levels of the Forbidden Sector. In addition, Li Changsung must remember that he is not allowed to take books outside the library. Taking advantage of Li Changsung's moments of grief from disliking him, the library employee asks Li Changsung for an autograph for his girlfriend, but Li Changsung ignores the request as he is completely immersed in his thoughts regarding caution, concurrently remembering Thanos' words about wanting to have a library dedicated to Hugh and the One-Horn tribe. But in order to resist temptation, Li Changsung activates his unshakable spirit. Finally, the calmness of spirit begins to activate, and Li Changsung dives into books to find out what he needs to know, without noticing how many days have passed. Li Changsung continues to be in the library, and this surprises the library employee, as he can't believe that Li Changsung is reading everything at the same time, not even choosing any specific books, but only some on spear or sword wielding, books on divine laws, breathing techniques, or myths of the gods. This doesn't produce the results Oh Shun expects, because he has to report to the director. What will he tell him? That Li Changsung is playing to the public, or that he's not too lazy to learn new things? But being in Li Changsung's library also hurts the librarian who is assigned to watch him and report back to him, who knew this venture would be so depressing. Only Li Changsung, being in a state of complete concentration, absorbs knowledge and memorizes everything he reads. If nothing else, Li Changsung is already in a state of insanity due to too much information absorption, and as a consequence, Li Changsung gets a new achievement called Book-Crazed Maniac. However, not all deities like such persistence. Some of them are getting tired of it, but the tiger deity trapped in hardship still continues to look at Li Changsung with interest. At some point, Li Changsung starts to realize that everything he's doing is stupid. After all, Li Changsung isn't as interested in getting the offensive steps as he is in the entire skill tree of Hugh. As we know, the library was originally created by the clan to show the greatness of Hugh, and to this day it is a sanctuary for the clan. Changsun manages to gather all the information about Hugh. Then, he will know the weaknesses of the people behind him. Eventually, with the help of the knowledge that Lu Chang has gained, a new skill is formed, which goes by the name of Hujitsu, destruction martial techniques. Finally, Lee Chang-sung realizes that he's had enough for now. The rest lies in the forbidden section opening, which you can get a skill for the achievement. However, it's starting to dawn on him that they weren't among the allowed books, after all. Lee Chang-sung has already watched the offensive steps 3 times, so they're in the forbidden sector. Since Lee Chang's has 3 more hours, he can check again, including the 7th level of the library. From this, Lee Chang-sung's willpower became stronger, shaking his steadfastness and calmness of mind. Lee Chang-sung revisits the books, looking through the spines. Suddenly, his hand comes across something he's been looking for so long. It's finally something that Lee Chang-sung is interested in and has been searching for quite some time. Surprisingly, the book is titled 100 Dishes You Can Make with Monster Meat. I'm sure it contains something valuable, and this can be verified if Lee Chang-sung reads it upside down and in a special way. However, he is in for a disappointment as the book does not spell out the steps of the offense. There's a place or something connected to that place, and that something lies in the deep resentment of someone who is fenced in with chains and spears. This certain someone was once betrayed by a brother in blood, and the name of this traitor was Sun. It seems that this name is familiar to Lee Chang-sung, but just how? Then, Lee Chang-sung has an epiphany. Of course he knows who he's talking about. That someone is none other than the famous Gum Chun-ho, a.k.a. Apostle Hugh, who, together with Director Oh, founded the White Tiger clan and is recognized as one of the 9 greatest black tigers in the world. There is no way that the author of the book and Gum Chun-ho are related in any way. At least, it seems that way. After all, it is known that Gum Chun-ho was a famous player who created his own martial art and became an apostle of Do. But in the book, everything is different. The man who holds a grudge is named Hanu, who is Sun's mentor. Of course, to be more precise, Hanu used to be his mentor, and it all started when Hanu, honing his sword skills, planned to become the Ilman clan's successor. Just at that moment, his teacher brought an apostle who was a boy much younger than Hanu. Yes, the boy in front of Hanu was an exceptionally young child. As the teacher's health gradually deteriorated, Hanu took custody of the child and accepted him as a sibling. However, when teaching a child martial arts, Hanu couldn't even guess what thoughts were in the mind of the seemingly quiet apostle and also what the patronizing spirit, the tiger trapped in hardship, thought of the White Tiger clan. Based on the name Hugh, he is a deity who thrives on chaos and fear. Hence, based on their choice of clan, peace is considered shameful to them. Naturally, the tiger trapped in the trap of hardship could have chosen a different apostle, but the problem is that the clan, unlike the others, best handled the Hugh doctrine. This means that no matter how much Hanu wants to protect his student, no matter how hard Hanu tried to resist it, knowing it was futile, at that moment, the deity tiger appears trapped and deprived, forced to choose the apostle over the boy. The tiger, trapped in a trap of hardship, bares his teeth at Hanu and his apprentice. Thus, Hugh's strength was not only drastically reduced but was also deliberately sealed. But then the question arises, why did the god who feeds on chaos do nothing to the Ilman clan to which Gum Chun-ho belonged? However, it is clear that Hanu was against bloodshed, and thus Hugh preferred him to Gum Chun-ho. Meanwhile, the man from the White Tiger clan who was sent to follow Lee Chang-sung is just pissed off that he's trying to look smart by reading a book like that. Sun's betrayal was probably not planned on short notice but has been in the works for years. Gradually, Gum Chun-ho poisoned his mentor, which lasted for a very long time, and the betrayal came from somewhere Sun didn't expect, from his blood brother. But apparently, just the homage alone didn't make Gum Chun-ho take his mentor's life. In addition to Gum Chun-ho blocking his breath and blocking Sun's magical powers, he lured him into the Ilman clan's cave. Unfortunately, the sacred spirit had also stripped Sun of her protection, and Sun is left to watch the Gum Chun-ho clan thrive, where he is now a priest in the place where the Ilman clan was. The reason for this is that Sun once disobeyed his teacher and went to another world, where he can do nothing but watch the chaos. If one day Sun hadn't heard a voice that caught his attention, Lee Chang-sung can't wait to find out what that voice is that Sun heard. Is that what Lee Chang-sung is thinking or guessing? He is eager for the story to continue, so he needs to find the hidden parts. Lee Chang-sung turns to the system window, and sure enough, he finds the hidden part, thus increasing his skill combination progression, which is 51%. This stuns Lee Chang-sung, who thinks that the progress of the hue combination is quite long but increases by another 12%. However, he is not happy at the wrong time as he needs to find more hidden parts and put them together, and as Lee Chang-sung continues to read, he realizes that what is described in the book is beyond the power of an ordinary mortal. It's more likely that there's divine intervention going on, and it's probably just the voice that Hanu heard. In the meantime, Lee Chang-sung's allotted time is coming to an end, and we still need to find the rest of the pieces. But considering that Munin didn't want Gum Cheno's followers to know his secret, Lee Changsung has to try harder in his search. Most likely, Sun assumed that whoever found one part would find the others that might be in the 7th level section. However, the search for Lee Changsung is already just pissing off the man assigned to watch him, and Tiger, trapped in hardship and hoping to see Lee Changsun, is his priest doesn't ask too many questions. While the snake deity wrapped around the world looks at Lee Changsung with understanding, finally, the endless search succeeds for Lee Changsung. He finds what he is looking for. It is known that the voice that Hanu heard says that he was once also betrayed by a priest and sent to Hanu's location because he was able to be devoured by his own child. As a result, he wandered the underworld for a long time as if he were a demon. As it turns out, Hanu and the voice that the man wielded had the same enemy. So this is getting interesting, and Lee Changsung puts the puzzle together and decides that the child is Hugh, which means whose weakness has been exposed. It's a secret no one would reveal. Toward the end, another epiphany begins to reach Lee Changsung, that is to become the deity Tiger, trapped in hardship. He had to become a demon that consumed his entire family, and Hanu keeps hearing that voice wanting to see the destruction of this demon, only so that man may finally rest in peace. For that, the man showed Hanu how to destroy the tiger deity trapped in hardship. However, Hanu was able to regain his strength and energy thanks to the knowledge he had gained, but he began to avoid everyone around him while continuing to train harder and harder to fully recover and concentrate on his skills. The hour has come to choose when he learns that the wandering priest has finally returned and seeks revenge in the same way he once betrayed Hanu. But even that wasn't enough for Hanu. He planned to take the priest's life. To do so, Hanu had to use his sword again to take revenge on the tiger who was trapped in a trap of hardship. Still, Hanu wasn't sure if he could actually lynch the traitor, and that thought wouldn't leave him alone. Hanu kept asking himself about it. Would Hanu raise his hand to Munson, whom he took as his own child? So Hanu decided to leave his will and resentment in the form of an obituary, hoping someone would be able to pass it on. For example, this someone could be the new descendant who will fulfill Hanu's will. That's where the story ends, with Lee Changsung finding all the hidden parts and gaining the achievement and skill, Claw of the Black Mountain Ruler. But the strong will of a man whose name is unknown to Lee Changsung begins to burn in his heart. After all, as you know, there is no scarier beast on earth than a wild beast with all its claws. The resulting skill involves instantly taking the life of an opponent through endless bleeding, as well as a chain attack skill that can be activated without any delay. The effect of accumulating damage means that the strength of the attack will increase from the sequence of use of skills, and combining the skills learned will help them hide in each other or be used to increase strength. Hanu, looking at his ward, calls out to him but does not show him any respect. Meanwhile, Munson looks at his teacher, mentor, and once close friend. At one time, Lee Changsung, absorbed in his thoughts, realizes that the Black Mountain Ruler's claw skill is like a kind of counter, but it's even possible that this skill is better since it takes its foundation from the same basics that are common to the skills of the White Tiger himself. But unfortunately, because of the weakness of the modern generation, no one remembers the skill of the ancient god. However, Lee Changsung realizes that this skill takes away a lot of magic power, so he needs to try his best to get one claw. Considering the fact that the more elixir Lee Changsung has, the better it is for him to go to the training institute. Since there is no time left, Lee Changsung decides that he can come back for the offensive steps another time. He leaves the library with 100 dishes that can be made from monster meat, moving to the foot of the dungeon called the Black Red Mountain Range. We must realize that according to the information Lee Changsung received, it won't be easy, but that's exactly what Director O wanted, and his behavior raises a lot of questions. There's probably some kind of mystery hidden in this place. Meanwhile, the weak wind skill follows Lee Changsung on his heels the whole way, and it annoys Lee Changsung as he decides how to get rid of him. Of course, realizing that he was exposed, the skill Weak Wind asks not to pay any attention to it, as it was in the library. However, Lee Changsung realizes that he can't catch him right away, so he can return to Suyum later. Leaving his pursuer behind, Lee Changsung makes it to the safe zone, where there are already other members sent on the mission, is filled with extreme surprise to see him here. Yes, among them is the Lee Changxiang that the headlines are talking about. Naturally, none of the members want to be compared to Lee Changxiang. Lee Changxiang takes a look around and realizes that there are only 3 useful people. Then his eyes slip to the girl who's his fan. It's so awkward and embarrassing to be reacting to Lee Changxiang like this, but among all the people present, a stranger catches Lee Chs's attention. The stranger greatly towers over everyone present, hiding his face under a blindfold, leaving only one eye visible. His name, according to the name tag around his neck, is Bok Jevel. According to the above information, Bok Gul is a new trainee in the White Tiger clan, and there is some premonition that Bok Jevel is blessed by a different god regarding who he really is. But then Li Changs is distracted by the man who was previously selected by his request to pay attention to him. Everyone, including Li Changs and Bok Gul, turns to listen, directed at the speaker. Yes, the 26th training of the White Tiger clan's new recruits is starting right now, and the White Tiger training camp is exactly for those who want to create their own new legend. And where is the SSS plus rank man? However, the last line begins to raise concerns for Li Changsung, believing that the Central Committee is overstepping its bounds. Meanwhile, elsewhere, at the head of the Human Resources Department, Wu Yongmun has a conversation going on between him and his nephew. The nephew asks his uncle to get him the photo cards that are no longer on sale, to which he receives an affirmative answer. However, this is not at all what Wu Yongmun asks of his niece, Hien, who is already hanging up the phone in resentment. It's all because of Jamil's gate that Wu Yong can't concentrate, but Wu Yong is madly in love with his niece Hien, even though it looks silly. What can I say? He almost lost his mind when he found out that Hien was at the epicenter of Jamil's gate. Wu Yong prayed unceasingly to the patron giant without a name for heaven to stay alive, and his prayer continued until the news came that Hien was alive. This news made Wu Yong madly sad, causing tears of joy and relief. After learning that Hien was alive thanks to a man, Wu Yong expressed his desire to thank him, and Hien told him that this person's name was Jang Song Aussie, who had disappeared without a trace after closing the dungeon gate. This means Wu Yong needs to recruit Li Changs into the clan he runs so that Hien can thank him, to which he receives cheers of joy and a huge compliment on himself. But what was he to say to Hien if they didn't even have a proper conversation? Because the first thing he did when he met Li Changxiang was confront him. Dao Huayan's goal was to test Li Changxiang in action, and so without thinking long, he bared his sword in front of the young man, thus challenging him. This probably made Li Changxiang very angry, but there was still hope that he would at least call back after receiving the card in order for Wu Yingying to personally recruit him into his 5-star sword clan. Still, he made a mistake. After all, no one expected Li Changxiang to be a genius and go straight to the White Tiger clan without even bothering to call the Wu Ying clan. So Hien calls Wu Yong day after day to tell him how she feels about him, because of his poor efforts. In addition, his older brother's wife and the father of their company are looking at him strangely. Who knew Li Changxiang would show himself? The reason for that is the event that happened to the Hoff clan, and that's why Wu Yong isn't focused enough. How can Wu Yong claim to be Li Changxiang's son if he's already chosen his path? Meanwhile, at the foot of the dungeon, there's a conversation going on about who Oppa looked at, because Li Changxiang's fans are starting to act really weird. I don't think Li Changxiang will like what he sees when he looks at the drooling girl. Who would have thought that even those who had the worst results passed the training test? But something happens that makes a guy who gets bad results wary. Looking at the expression on his leader Hen's face, he still tries to ask what's going on with him, but Hen's continued silence is beginning to cause not only surprise but fear. However, it turns out that nothing significant is happening. You just have to get close enough to hear the rules of boot camp. Indeed, a member of the White Tiger clan begins to announce the training camp's pillars. All the trainees present look at the screen where the rules to be followed are spelled out. Also, besides all of the above, any autonomous actions and judgments are possible after familiarizing themselves with the rules. The clan member moves on to teach the trainees 3 basic skills, which are as follows: Aura of the Tiger, Step of the Tiger, and Calamity of the Tiger. Apparently, someone is happy to hold skill scrolls because he thinks he is a full member of the clan while voicing their content. But once the trainees get their skill scrolls, they need to break them. After tearing the scrolls with the contents, everyone is thrilled that they were able to do this by getting their skill at the same time. The clan member A.K.A. instructor continues to instruct on how to use them. To pay attention to the rack, however, his instruction is stopped by a hand raised from the audience. This hand belongs to Li Changsung, who claims to already possess these skills. This is something a member of the White Tiger clan, A.K.A. the trainee instructor, would never expect to hear, let alone speak of those present, who are no less shocked by what they've heard. But Li Changsung is also aware that he has the right to leave the safe zone if he knows the skills perfectly, and this further agitates those present who believe that whether Li Changsung got the scrolls before the others, even if he is gifted, he can't know everything just by tearing the scrolls. The same feeling goes for the guy whose face is hidden behind a cloth mask. However, Li Changsung's fan starts to get frantic, believing that tyrant is still alive. However, their leader, Hyun, reassures them that Li Changsung will fail the test anyway, so there's no reason to be angry, because Hyun has information from his father, the clan's executive director, that tyrant had not previously received the 3 skills. Li Changsung is offered to demonstrate them, confident that he will fail. If Li Changsung is embarrassed, what will Shin Yuno say about him? Now, Li Changsung is beginning his preparations to show off the skills he has mastered, and just at that time, runes begin to appear on his face, leaving Leader Hyun stunned and in disbelief at what he sees. This activates a learned skill called Step of the Tiger. A little later, enveloping himself in a fiery aura, Li Changsung activates the next skill, Aura of the Tiger. Not only does Li Changsung release the aura and shape it into a tiger, which is impossible, at least Leader Hyun doesn't understand how a brat like Li Changsung can do it. But what would Leader Hyun say at the sight of Li Changsung moving on to activate the next skill? Indeed, Li Changsung, enveloping himself in a fiery black aura with sword in hand, activates the last skill, Calamity of the Tiger. And what Li Changsung is showing is shocking to all the trainees present. Even someone who covers their face with a cloth mask is no exception, but even more shocked is Leader Hyun, who is sure that Li Changsung will be disgraced. Meanwhile, Li Changsung continues to make circular movements with his sword, forming a circle of fire that practically reaches the trainee instructor in the training arena. Barely touching him, he continues to move past him, scorching him with its light until, under Li Changsung's leadership, it devolves into a fountain of fire, causing destruction and forming fiery lava flows and eventually causing monsters to start coming out. Naturally, the clan member and part-time instructor still can't come to his senses from what he's seen. However, Li Changsung explains that by deciding to just try the idea, it was successful. His answer seems to the instructor like some unfunny joke, and he still can't get away from it. The same is felt by the other trainees, who are simply numbed by the show that Tyrant has so skillfully demonstrated. Yes, and as is classic, the surprise of the audience begins to turn to anger and aggression towards Li Changsung. However, Li Changsung hears another disgruntled cry coming from behind the bushes. That's probably the reason why Li Changsung was in the library after all. Li Changsung was able to master the skills that had defied this guy for 10 years. It turns out Li Changsung works hard in places where he can't be disturbed, and after finally realizing it, the guy apologizes for thinking badly of Li Changsung. After all, Li Changsung is an amazing genius who deserves respect. Of course, Li Changsung couldn't have expected to be treated like this, because now it's unlikely that anyone can catch up with him since he's not only a genius but also a hard worker. His female fan will be blown away by what she's hearing. She can't see anyone but Li Changsung. Just as a tiger is trapped in the midst of hardship, Li Changsung's personality becomes even more respected while Hugh cheers him on. Pabelsag is all disgruntled and resentful. In this way, Li Changsung proves that he is capable of fighting on his own, and after receiving permission from the trainee instructor, Li Changsung leaves the trainees present. Thus, Li Changsung single-handedly exits the safe zone, leaving the rest of the players behind. However, not everyone is happy about it. At least 3 people were not happy, and one man in particular among the trio is sharply distinguished by his hatred for Li Changsung. Meanwhile, after coming out of the safe zone, Li Changsung is already approaching the dungeon and just starting to make inroads into the lands leading up to the Black-Red Ridge when he suddenly sees the ground creatures fleeing in the opposite direction. So Li Changsung is being watched all the time by the tiger, who was trapped in a trap of hardship, even as he converses with the director, waiting for confirmation of his words. But upon entering the land of the Black-Red Ridge, Li Changsung notices that the air is thick and impossible to breathe due to the changing ecosystem. Li Changsung attempts to purify the air with the flames of the 8 trigrams, realizing that a novice would not be able to survive here. So, Li Changsung activates the stillness to try and diffuse the thick air. Also, Li Changsung needs to activate his inner calm and resort to weapons to successfully accomplish his plan. At this time, the snake wrapped around the world is watching Li Changsung with interest, waiting for his next move. Li Changsung, having taken all the necessary steps to prepare, decides to move on to the next stage. Yeah, he's sure to hit that spot that contributes to such a tough environment around here, which means the next thing he has to do is activate the Tiger Step, which helps activate the earthquake and starts adding the path record. In this way, Li Changsung used his spear to release a stream of fiery energy. It's going to the place where Li Changsung thinks evil is concentrated. A blow, and a monster is revealed, struck by a spear thrust. It's just like Li Changsung suggests, it's a monster habitat. And no either slash or, but one-legged ghost scattering from the blow. Since that's the case, the thing Li Changsung is looking for is a mass of fleeing one-legged ghosts. 100% is right here in this place, and he can't be wrong, which means he has to work hard to find this thing. This resolute attitude of Li Changsung is confirmed by a gaze with an inhuman glow. However, before proceeding, Li Chan must try out one thing, and Li Changzang starts activating a skill called First Claw of the Black Mountain Ruler, thus fully immersing himself in the process. Being activated, he draws out in a circle with his spear streams of pink energy that circularly form a funnel, which begins its effect on the dense streams of one-legged ghosts, each time clearing the space around him and chasing the creatures away until the dense shroud of darkness begins to move aside, releasing the occupied lands. Yes, as Li Chang suggests, this skill requires a large amount of magical energy, but he doesn't realize it yet. Since that's the case, he has to work hard to increase his magical power. Anyway, the thing that Li Changzang needs just has to be in the lair of the one-legged ghosts. But as soon as Li Chang thinks about it, he is attacked by one of the one-legged ghosts. Not having time to accomplish what he had planned, he receives a striking blow from the released whip, which is a bracelet placed on Li Chan's arm. Next, Li Chan's son makes the decision to activate the Eye of the Viper, which brings admiration to Hunt Time, while the Snake of the Coiling World recognizes that his path of knowledge is his gift. As a result, Li Changzang successfully cleans up a colony of one-legged ghosts and is rewarded with a knee joint and a one-legged ghost's baton. Li Chan activates the soul-sucking skill after completing the job. Suddenly, something starts to catch Li Changzang's attention, which is an unknown creature resembling a flower with eyes on a multi-branched berry. Whether Li Changzang is imagining it or not, the flower that was just looking at him now appears motionless. Li Changzang starts to realize that this is the very thing he needs. This item is the very flower he is looking for in the former settlement of one-legged monsters. So, Li Changzang needs to get it. Li Changzang grabs it and starts dragging it, while the flower starts squealing. Thus, Li Chang becomes the owner of a squealing flower. The shrieking flower is known to grow in the place between life and death, and its property is the presence of a potent poison that leads to death. However, the purpose of its use by Li Changzang is different and departs from the boundaries of its usual use. He wants to try to transform the fire of the 8 tigers. So, he turns to the deity, but one of the AOG gods is shocked that Li Changzang has gotten hold of the flames of the 8 tigers and the power of the Tao, and wants to get his hands on them. However, Li Chang is not satisfied with AO's moralizing and asks him to tell him the way to get them. It turns out that, in fact, everything is much simpler. In the process of building up Li Changzang's strength, it's not fuel but fire that's needed. However, for the flame not to be consumed, it must be vicious and violent. Li Changzang doesn't understand what kind of flame we're talking about, and Iroh gives another clue for Li Changzang to get the end of the world flame. He needs to find the monster's yuk or jjigae. I see. So the next thing Li Changzang has to do is find jjigae. Li Changzang remembers standing on a cliff and looking up at the mountain and seeing a creature flying out of it. This bird-like creature is heading away from the mountain in an unknown direction. Finally, Li Changzang is beginning to realize what this creature is, and its name is jjigae. So, he doesn't need it to smolder, but to become a raging fire, and the only way Li Changzang can do that is with a flower to feed on. However, the ingestion of the flower is accompanied by the spread of death poison throughout the body. This begins to activate immunity to the 10 poisons, and the fire of the 8 tigers, flaring brighter and brighter, begins to cleanse the body, increasing the magical power. Now, Li Changzang can make fire, thus increasing his magical power, so he can continue the path in parallel by clearing the settlement of one-legged ghosts and getting the skull and heart of a one-legged ghost as a reward. Along the way, Li Chan's son mops up a settlement of red-bearded ghosts by uncovering a family of battle-ready flowers and mopping up a group of dark ghosts, thus by his adventure tiring the deities of Hunting Time and the owl piercing the dim light. Finally, after a long journey, Li Changsun comes close to the foot of the dungeon mountain, and after climbing one of the peaks, Changzang starts to look around until he discovers a nest-like hollow of twigs. That's right, there's a nest of jjigae here, where Li Changzang finds him. As we know, jjigae is a rather strange monster with no set body, and if it's like Iroh says, then this monster is probably lifeless. But you can't say that either. Probably jjigae is more like a pack of spirits that display something consistent with flame and death. And since they are spirits, there's no way Jig's venom would come from anything resembling it. It is known that Jig's right eye is the bile of tens of thousands of ghosts, which under the influence of high temperature turns into a jewel. If you use this jewel, Li Changxiang will be able to change the fire of the 8 trigrams. Remembering what Iroh said and taking advantage of Jjigae's absence, Chan's son decides to set up a trap in her nest. At this time, the clan members are reviewing the past ones, which is 40% in 10 days. That's the best result ever among the surrendered. There are 3 players who follow in Li Chang's footsteps and harbor hatred for him, and as they follow Li Changsun's path, they are once again convinced that this is so because only Li Shengen could have left behind what they see. Deciding to stop the idle chatter, they start wondering how they'll torture Le Changsun when they get to him. On the flight, continuing to speculate about how Le Chang represents nothing and only seems cool, they believe that the white tiger endowed Le Chang with something that allows him to surpass everyone else since he mastered the skills in less than a day. But what happens to them if the clan overseers find out about their scheme? However, as we know, what is hidden behind the veil of justice is a lie, and the White Tiger clan is no different from the Hoff clan. After all, in addition to the direct meaning of the word murderer, there is a reverse side of this personality capable of doing anything for money and entertainment. You also have to consider that Le Changsun has amassed quite a bit of capital being a pro gamer, and plus he comes from a wealthy family. But still, among the intruders there is one who doubts the correctness of the plan because Li Changsun just fell into their hands, for which he receives disapproving looks in his direction from his comrades. But then the guy starts to realize the consequences for which they will have to answer in case it becomes known to the White Tiger clan. After all, if they fail to successfully implement the plan, they will get a lot of problems since they not only need to take part in the training of the White Tiger but also to steal the Sphere of Illusions. But you have to consider that it was the White Tiger that cornered the Hoff clan, which means they need to get the sphere at any cost. Hearing this makes the rest of the gang furious because there are doubts that they may not be able to cope, and it's not just condemnation, it's threats against the guy who dared to question their plan. So if he does anything else like that, he's going to end up being mauled by a one-legged ghost. His buddies continue on their way in search of Li Changsun, leaving the guy to ponder. Naturally, whatever the doubts and contradictions, the fear of being headless is above all else, and therefore the guy has nothing to do but to activate the ability to move and go after the allies. Meanwhile, somewhere in the mountains of the Black Red Ridge, as they approach the dungeon, a bright fiery-colored explosion occurs at the very spot where Li Changsun is. This unmasked evil spirit is trapped by Le Changsun. Activating the explosion rune and penetration rune causes the spirit to become paralyzed. In doing so, Le Changsun defeats the two-headed python, the fire dog, and the striped bird, but unfortunately, among those caught, only fire-type monsters and no fire ghosts. However, the explosions make the deity of hunting time happy, but Li Changsun, after 10 days, still hasn't gotten to the nest, save that the level has risen to 302, which only tells me that the fire ghost is already gone. That creates a new problem because we may have to go down the river again. However, before he can do that, Le Changsun has something very important to settle. Suddenly, there is an explosion inside the nest where Le Chang's is jumping, releasing a fiery beam of light. Le Changsun, considering that one meets eyes with someone who also stares at him intently, sees a man with a burnt face wrapped in a mask of rags who earlier drew attention to himself at this election. Who would have thought that Li Changsun would be confronted by a man named Bigul, a man he didn't expect to meet? It's likely that Bigul is intentionally stalking Li Changsun, but even if it is, it doesn't matter since Bigul sees everything Li Changsun does. If that's the case, Le Changsun will have to send Bigul to the afterlife, and without hesitation, Li Changsun puts the tip of his spear to Bigul's face, which is being countered by Bigul, which means there will be a confrontation. And the battle between the two sides, Li Changsun and BW, is about to begins. But in order to win, Le Chang must realize that Baekgul uses a spear that exceeds 3m in length, and he will be a level higher. Nevertheless, the confrontation does not stop, and each side assesses the capabilities of the other. In turn, Baekgul notes that he is dealing with an opponent characterized by speed and accuracy because he is aiming at his neck with such precision. Le Chang makes another lunge, and his spear practically touches Baekgul. Therefore, Baekgul must be extremely careful not to lose his life prematurely. To do so, he decides to show a move against Le Chang, thus catching Le Chang by surprise, who is unprepared for this. However, Le Chang still manages to react in time to Baekgul's lunge, and he successfully dodges a punch from his opponent, who in turn realizes that Le Chang has managed to avoid being hit. Meanwhile, Le Chang takes out a rusty sword that he acquired from the blind master's forge. With a swinging motion, Le Chang strikes his opponent. To Baekgul's surprise, the sword slides, touching his face and shattering into pieces. The mask flew off Baekgul's face. However, Le Chang does not finish what he started, stopping his sword at Baekgul's neck and striking the lad. But it seems that Le Chang is being stopped by something that made a strong impression on him, and that something is Baekgul's ability to use the secret art of shadow. Baekgul also wonders how Le Chang knows that name, and Le Chang explains that back then, when his life consisted of feuds and wars, he could only rely on them. However, they left him due to his insanity, and took away relationships and memories that were dear to him. Among them is a goddess who patronizes slaughter and destruction. Also on that list is a dragon who slept for 1,000 years. Along with these deities, an iron-blooded lion is glimpsed. Rounding out the list is Xerxes, who is also called Wandering Shadow, who, unlike the other gods, has one unique power called the Secret Art of Shadow. Yes, the one god with only one power is Xerxes. It is known that the Secret Art of Shadow was known only to Xerxes' comrades. In that case, who is Bakgul? But there is a big difference between Xerxes' power and the Secret Art of Shadow that is developed by ordinary people, and this is what Lechang is interested in. After interrupting Bakgul's question, Lechang insists that his opponent answer first, but that doesn't please Bakgul, who will use force to make Lechang speak first. Without waiting for a response, Bakgul attempts to attack Lechang, to which Lechang is ready, waiting with his rusty sword. The deity tiger, trapped in the ordeal, is insanely pleased with such a fierce clash between two people preparing to become his servants. Meanwhile, in response to Bakgul's crazed attempt to attack, Lechang has no plans to take his life until he learns about the Secret Art of Shadow and throws his spear against Bakgul's battle inventory. This results in a collision that forms a bright flash of light. I guess Bakgul didn't expect Lechang to have a spear in his arsenal, nudging which Lechang leaps straight towards Bakgul, just in time to defend himself with a block using his spear. Apparently, Bakgul doesn't count on that kind of power. In the meantime, Lechang begins activating the skills he's learned, and first of all, Lechang uses the skills Calamity of the Tiger and Step of the Tiger, the simultaneous application of which causes them to fuse. Next in line is the activation of the Aura of the Tiger skill, which merges with the first two, increasing in strength. It is the simultaneous activation of all skills that eventually reaches its ideal state. Therefore, having achieved reinforcement, Lechang is even more focused on leading the confrontation. With renewed vigor, he launches an offensive against his adversary Bakgul, who is already beginning to fail to cope with such an onslaught, and is facing defeat. He ends up being forcefully thrown in the opposite direction from Lechang, leading directly to the stone wall. Bakgul flies off, forming clouds of dust around him and causing him pain from the impact. Before Bakgul knows it, Lechang's spearhead is headed for his face, which brings to mind the deity of hunting, Time, who enjoys such a showy game. The defeated Bakgul still wants to find out who Lechang is, who is once again marked by the tiger, trapped in a trap of temptation. At one time, Lechang realizes that Bakgul is a half-ghost, which is why he has that appearance and special ability. But this hunch terrifies Bakgul as he doesn't understand how Lechang will find out. However, does it really matter anymore, at least to Lechang? So the Secret Art of Shadow is his innate skill, and the burned scars are the result of a human-ghost bond. It appears that the traces of divinity that Lechang senses come from Xerxes, and why Xerxes' life force is greatly diminished. At the same time, why he abandons his son in the mortal realm. Since that's the case, Lechang will be forced to take Bakgul with him, who probably knows nothing about his father. Then, Lechang begins to guess that Bakgul wants to heal his curse with Jigsaw's eye, but he fails because Lechang is much more. Illuminating on many issues, there should be Gula, who in turn is curious to know what exactly Lechang Shong knows. However, Li Chan's song again stuns Bakgul by saying that after exchanging a few punches, it should be obvious because Jig's eye won't heal the burns that Bakjiva believes he got from his fire ghost parents. All because Bijil's parents aren't fire parents, in which case he wouldn't be able to use the attribute of darkness. And Jiga is closer to death, plus, he has an aura much stronger than ordinary ghosts. In that case, it's likely that Bakgavula plans to eat Jig's eye. This knowledge commands the respect of the serpent that coils the world, and since that's the case, what's even more likely is that Bakgavula expects to become an evil spirit or a ghost altogether. This fact deeply disappoints Bakgulu, who counts on his healing, but the thirst to cleanse his face of the scars gave Bakgavil hope that he might still succeed. Eventually, the realization comes to Bakshil that he is very wrong and is stumped by helplessness. Suddenly, what he hears from Lechang brings him abruptly to consciousness, and Li Chansung, in turn, offers Bakgul's help in healing, but only if a deal is struck between them. This sentence further puts Bakgula in a stupor. However, in exchange for healing, Lechang asks Bakgula to share knowledge regarding Jige, plus help in the case. After all, Bakgula has studied them in great detail, so he must know something Lechang Shong doesn't know. And so, as not to sow doubt in Bakjiva's mind, Lechang wants to confirm his words about healing. Indeed, now that's something you definitely don't expect to hear. At the end, Lechang doesn't have to wait. He asks Bakgula to reach out to him. However, Bakgula still doesn't trust Li Changsong, cautiously prepares to lend a hand, but it doesn't matter much because for Bakgula, risks nothing in the event of failure on Li Chs's part. So still not believing Li Changsong, Bakgula nevertheless reaches out to his enemy, and Li Changsong meets her with his hand, tenaciously grabbing her wrist while cautioning that there may be discomfort from being a little hot, and therefore Baek Gula needs to be patient. Immediately, a stream of fiery lava begins to erupt, directed toward Baek Gula, while brightly lighting up his face. Grasping the hand that he had given to Lee Chang-song to heal from the resulting pain, Baek Gula opens his mouth and begins to capture some of the flame. At the same time, Lee Chang-sung warns that by doing so, Baek Gula, with a sigh, may interfere with the circulation of magical power. Soon, a muffled moan begins to erupt from Baek Gula, which indicates that his semi-transparent state is beginning to change. Finally, everything comes to a point where the curse leaves Baek Gula. In doing so, Baek Gula feels his ghostly features begin to disappear, taking his bad luck with him. But all this is quite possible. Only the fire needs to reach the heart of Gavula, where the center of his ghostly features are concentrated. It takes a little more time for the fire to reach the heart, and then anything is possible. But then the lights start to go out, and he's just a little short of reaching it. And just at that moment, not realizing what's going on, Lee Chang-sung's shout brings him to his senses. He realizes exactly where Baek Gula is going and brings him out of his trance, and also asks Baek Gula to try to look at his face for starters. However, Baek Gula begins to look at his hand first. After all, the result is quite obvious, and not only Baek Gula but also Hun Time are surprised by the new transformation. The serpent who wraps the world is sure that it is necessary to better master the effects of the flame. Tigers and the tiger trapped in a trap of deprivation mocks his subordinates, but for now, that's all Lee Chang-sung can do, and Baek Gula needs constant treatment, which doesn't guarantee anything either. However, there is a way out, and it is to work together to defeat Jigui and increase the fire powers that will be useful to the two of them. And if there is such a need, Le Chang-shong is willing to make a Manhwa act, but there's no need whatsoever for what Le Chang's has done for Baek Gula is enough to trust him. However, such a statement folds Le Chs's opinion of Baek Gula's naivety. In addition, his reaction when Baek Gula learns of the help that will be required of him will be unknown. Well, that means it's time to start listing where Baek Gula will be needed. First of all, Le Chang asks for respectful respect, as he can't allow familiarity from his friend's son, which causes a sense of bewilderment on the part of Baek Gva and mockery on the part of the deity of the serpent encircling the world. Meanwhile, Le Chang-sung keeps talking about how to defeat Jigui by learning her habits, and for what it's worth, Jig's appearance mostly resembles that of a crow. So Baek Gula suggests searching Jig's nest first. Le Chang-sung and Baek Gula begin to carry out the agreed-upon actions, as a result stumbling upon untold treasures hidden in the nest. So it turns out that Jiggy collects trophies from her victims. Considering that they are all precious things, they are worthless to Jigui, and soon Jigui forgets about them altogether. It should also be noted that the collected trinkets can tell them what route her future path will take. The precious items Le Chang-sun and Baek Gula stumble upon a bow named White Dove, which has the ability to launch 5 arrows in succession and the ability to pierce anything. Li Chang-zang decides to pick out something worthwhile for himself and get a sum of money for the others, but then, amongst all the jewelry, a special piece catches his eye, which resembles a sphere with black and pink waves of glow coming from it. Also, among other things, this item emits the odor of death that Li Chang-zang is no stranger to. It is a pearl of illusions made from the flowers of death, destruction, and what else, emitting the odor of resentment that have lost their lives to smallpox. Considering the fact that smallpox is a disease of the past, perhaps the pearl of illusion has something to do with the white tiger. Then Baek Gula informs Le Chang-zang that he knows where Jigui is now. Based on the fact that Jigui was focused on food for a long time, her strength is at its limit. From this, it follows that she has settled deep in the mountains populated by magical creatures and monsters who possess powerful souls. To Li Chang-zang's surprise, it is worth recognizing that Baek Gula's native knowledge is very useful, which means it's not worth procrastinating. So, without wasting a moment, Li Chang and Baek Gula decide to send Jigui on a search. Their journey deep into the mountains has been going on for 4 whole days, and finally, it seems that they have reached Jigui's new ground place. Along the way, they encounter the bones and skeletons of her victims. Then, Li Chang-zang recalls Io's words that Jigui has a great appetite, which literally confirms her greed and lack of a sense of complete satiation. Suddenly, Li Chang-zang and Baek Gula's movement is disturbed by something that catches their attention. To find out what's wrong, they go to the cliffs, looking down, where the Jigui class contributes to the formation of drought. At the same time, the size of this bird strikes the deity of hunting time. Li Chang-zang, seeing the disaster, starts activating the Eye of the Viper. In doing so, Jigui's staggering size continues the work she started. At this time, Li Chang-sun takes out a bow from Jigui's arsenal and tucks the arrows into it. The deity tiger, trapped in the ordeal, feeling a sense of pride for his family members, decides to give them gifts while realizing that everything turns out to be much simpler. Happy that the range of his vision has increased, it's not just his eyesight, but all of his senses to a new level. Meanwhile, Jigui continues her meal, trying to satisfy her hunger. However, Li Changzong tries to shoot arrows and wonders if the ruler of the abyss can bestow something to enhance his feelings. But this causes excitement for Hunting Time, who is feeling uncomfortable with the fact that the gods bestow Li Chang's power. At the end, Deepabig, making his move, gives Li Changzong his power, and it comes at just the right time as the gift and power of the deity help Li Changzong to accurately hit the chosen target, Jigui. So, confident in his plan, Li Changzong releases the bowstring and lets the arrows fly, which, after traveling a considerable distance, must hit the intended target, Jigui. And so it is, in fact, that the arrows reach Jigui and wound her through and through, causing great damage to her. In addition to the skills of explosive lightning, the lightning network contributes to the temporary formation of a thunderstorm. In turn, this sight is admired and approved by Bak Gula, all thanks to the gift given by the ruler of the abyss himself. Thus, Li Changzong is now the possessor of the fighting senses that he had been missing. Now the acquired beast senses skill directs all of Li Changzong's senses to Jigui only, and this plays a big role for him as he starts guessing Jigui's moves better, thereby making Tiger, who was trapped, proud that Li Changzong was using his gift. Meanwhile, Bak Gula comes to realize that defeating Jigui seems crazy to him, but as it is, they just have to beat her. Suddenly, Li Changzong's attention is attracted by a foreign sound. It turns out there's a trespasser who has no right to join the race, and at that moment, two people appear in Li Changzong's and Bak Gula's field of vision. As it turns out, this is a security zone accessible only to clan members and not to trainees. Meanwhile, a series of punches continue to land on Jigui until, eventually, another critical blow is struck. This strike increases the skill level of Lightning Blast and Lightning Net. With that said, no one here is going to back down despite the warning about intruders being in the area. So, one of the clan members reiterates that the territory where Li Changzong and Bak Gula are located is protected. Suddenly, Bak Gula can't stand it and declares that Jigui is their target, which they have been pursuing for 4 days now. However, in response, he receives a warning to immediately retreat from the closed area, and if they disobey, the clan members are not responsible for the consequences. Yes, not in a favorable position for themselves are Li Changzong and Bak Gula, but while there is a dispute between them and the members of the White Tiger clan, Jigui makes some sort of attempt that attracts their attention. This means Jigui wants to fly away from where they are trying to attack her, and Bak Gula realizes that if they lose her now, they'll never catch up, but at that very minute, they receive a threat against them from members of the White Tiger clan. Meanwhile, Jigui begins to rise up, leaving his pursuers behind. This shows that the hope of B. Gavel is leaving him, along with Jigui. However, Le Chang, unlike his partner, is beginning to realize what these guys are here for. But no matter how the director says it, some intervention is still required. Le Chang's stalker disappearing leaves him with his own thoughts, which means the CEO is hiding something. Using the guise, and most likely the pearl of illusion found in Jigu's nest, had something to do with it. It's even possible that Jigui took the life of someone who had something to do with the mystery. If so, the clan members want to either capture or destroy the gem of illusions so all involved can hunt Jigui. It's likely that Le Chang needs to delve more into this topic to get more valuable information. Back to the clan members. Le Chang Song knows they're allowed to do anything outside of this area since they had received confirmation of their words. The members of the White Tiger clan had nothing to worry about. However, just at that time, being right above the heads of the Jigui clan members, rocks begin to fall. Naturally, this was not expected by the representatives who came to eliminate the violators of the safe zone. So, flying off to the sides, they are hit by a torrent of rock blocks formed by the Jigui crash. Jigui, consumed by fire, continues her downward plunge. At this moment, Le Chang begins to activate a newly acquired skill, which is a black veil heading towards the stricken Jigui bird. Immediately after that, Le Song activates another skill of his related to the 8 trigrams flame, which begins its action due to the new energy source discovered. Thus, Le Chang Song, activating 2 skills, is exalted to accomplish the mission. As a result, the flame of the 8 trigrams, finding a new source of fire, tries to swiftly consume it, resulting in a monster that could conceivably leave a chick behind. After all, it is likely that Jigui left the nest to search for food for the baby, considering that consuming her fire could have serious consequences. If you use the knowledge you have gained wisely, it will be very useful, and you will need very serious preparation. However, Le Chang and Bak Gula have no clear ideas on how to do this because there is no certainty that even what Bak Gula proposes will work. But Le Chang decides, ahead of him, that he needs to get to the location of Jigu's food source earlier in order to make a trap. Le Changsong starts activating another skill related to soul absorption, presenting a spectacular spectacle as the soul-sucking powerhouse begins to eat the spirit that is Jigu, thereby spreading the fire to other spirits that are connected to Jigu, eventually consuming the monster entirely. In doing so, the fire of purgatory for all becomes palpably stronger, which suggests that the monster is devouring everything in its path. This is because Jigu is addicted to hunting due to hunger, which leaves him no way out. So, the corpse can be used as bait, and Le Changsong suggests smearing it with a poison that has an icy and paralyzing effect against which Jigu can do nothing. She's powerless here. That's exactly what Le Changsong has in mind for this plan of action. Jigu continues to absorb the souls of her victims to use it as fuel to keep the flames of death alive. However, Le Changsong hides from Baek-gula that after taking the monster's life, he did not extract its spirit. As he enters Jigu's body, he will become part of her flesh, which plays a significant role because when Jigu tries to escape again, Le Chang, using soul-sucking, will bring her back. Given that Jigu is a cluster of spirits, she will not escape the flames of the 8 trigrams, and the ashes from Jigu's burning will be next to Le Changsong, representing Jigu's natural enemy, with whom she is not only incompatible but who consumes her while causing the uncontrolled absorption of the lights to produce a poison that is destructive to Le Changsong. This ultimately affects the violation of the 8 trigrams flame control and the frantic growth of the magic circuit, already exceeding the permissible threshold, which results in no more items being able to be added. Therefore, a new change will be attempted. But still, Le Chan gets a new award called the One Who Absorbed the Sun, which increases the skill level of the soul-sucking power skill, meaning souls will now be extracted faster. Jige, however, begins to make attempts at resistance, which confuses and frightens the clan members for lack of clarity on what they should do. Le Chang, watching, thinks that this is the moment Jigu will expose it. Le Changsong, exposing his sword to the flames of the 8 trigrams, adds destructive properties. As a result, the eternal flame first slowly peeks out, then it burns in a sword made of fish guts, then awakens, and blood is formed, thereby successfully fulfilling the hidden requirements of the divine artifact and causing Le Chang to cry exactly what he expects. The sword, ransomed from the blind smith of grief in the fiery flames, continues its rebirth, and Le Changsong realizes there's only one way to track down Jigu. It's to remove the entire seal from a sword made of fish guts. To do that, you need to take all devouring flames, and a lot of them, for the sword is seen to consume the all-consuming flames. Great greed. Oh, and by the way, Le Changsong has something else to do for the case, and that something is the blood he draws by running his hand over the tip of the spear, for only flame and blood will free the sword from the fish scales that have rested in it for a millennium. All because the sword was always near the frying pan, and before it got to Yezi, it absorbed a huge amount of blood called the Sword of Death, thus awakening the fire and forming blood. Le Changsong fulfills the hidden requirements of the divine artifact, and it's also worth keeping in mind that the sword that absorbed Le Changsong's blood and fire now belongs to him alone. Now Le Changsong is the only full master of the sword who must obey him. Since that's the case, Le Changsong is now ordering the sword to tremble before him. The certificate that Le Changsong is the owner of the fish gut sword will be inscribed on his blade. Yes, finally, Li Changsheng gets what he wants. Suddenly, spirits start coming out of the sword, talking to Le Changsong, each of them saying that Le Changsong releasing them should take them. However, Le Changsong staunchly responds to these remarks without being influenced by them, and the spirits keep coming out of the sword, shouting for Le Chang to take them. This show brings Baeku and 2 members of the White Tiger clan into awe and amazement. Meanwhile, the spirits begin to engulf Li Chang's, wrapping him in the vortex of their presence, and whispering to him that by freeing them, he should make a choice in favor of one of them. But Le Changsong pulls himself together in time and orders the spirits to shut up, and it works, as the resulting glow begins to drive away the spirits from Li Chang's until it finally frees him from the spirit's influence for good. Now, Li Chang's becomes the sole and only full owner of the fish gut sword. Now Le Changsong and the sword become one, complementing each other. To be sure, Li Changsong decides to test the sword in action. Taking the sword in his hands, Li Changsong begins to spin it around, forming a circle of fire around him until it turns into a single circle of fire around Li Chang. That's what it takes to deliver a powerful critical blow to Jigu, which leads to Jig blowing herself up to leave the place. Meanwhile, Le Changsong continues to test the sword by applying other skills to it, which contributes to the tiger's flame bursting out, and once again reaching Jige, striking her with a powerful blow. Ling Song then begins activating the next skill, known as the Black Mountain Monarch's Fang, which reaches its peak through the unity of Le Changsong and the fish gut sword, striking a decisive and at the same time final blow to Jig, tearing her to shreds. In the end, Li Changsun reaches out and takes possession of Jidu X1's right crystal eye, which allows him to observe the changes that occur both in the human world and in the afterlife. This raises the high-level dagger skill to the highest level, and the low-level long sword skill appears, leading to the merging of categories and the creation of swordsmanship, which shocks all the gods who are watching. Li Changzang and Li Chang's, having partially satisfied the conditions of the fish gut sword, can now use its hidden abilities. But to unlock all of the sword's abilities, Li Changsun gets a hidden task, which is to find the remaining 8 swords. So, Li Changzang not only needs to find the remaining swords that complement each other, but also protect the fish gut sword. Having been given a hidden assignment, Li Changsun exposes his right hand, which has hieroglyphics on it. With that, he begins to feel his arm getting heavier than before. However, Li Chan realizes that the sword has not shown any reaction at all until recently. After all, it almost triples what he had at level 30, so he feels like a great river is flowing through him. While Li Changsun commits his actions, Baekgula and the members of the White Tiger clan continue to watch him, and the latter are stunned that Jiggy has been stolen from them, and don't know what to do. Maybe they can pretend it's not happening, but in fact they can't do that. They need to do something about Li Chang's, who possesses the illusory pearl. To prevent it from falling into the wrong hands, Li Changzang must be beaten because this is the right time to do it. Li Changzang only absorbed Jig's flame, not put it out, and even if Li Changzang is consumed by the all-consuming flames, he's exhausted enough to resist like Baekgula. Therefore, they need to immediately defeat him and get information about the illusory pearl. Otherwise, feed him to the beasts. Even though the executive director thinks Li Chang's is capable, for them it won't be much of a problem. Just as they're thinking about it, someone shows up to disrupt their plans. Equally surprised by the new arrivals are Li Chang's and Baekgula, and that someone is a member of the Ha-Off clan, who happens to be a member of the gathering.